right. Good afternoon. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Water Task Force. As a reminder, there's a sign-in sheet at the back of the room. I had to write myself a note to remember this, but if you could sign in at the back of the room, please do so. We're going to open it up to public comment.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Schwartz. I've been a full-time resident of Bonita Springs since 2001. I thank the members of the task force for your time and dedication to this difficult project. I'm concerned about the number of issues that remain in the parking lot and the amount of time it may take to address them. At this point, it's not entirely clear who owns what issues, where some of them originated, and many of them appear to be duplicates. I think the time could be better spent if each member identified their first priority issue, rotating among the members, then their second priority, and so on. I think this will help members of the public identify the interests represented by the various task force members. Secondly, I want to support the recommendations outlined in Task 3 of the Kevin Irwin study, which involves 1 year of groundwater level monitoring in the DRGR. This should be followed by the city issuing an RFQ to contract with a modeler to develop a dynamic future conditions model. This model would show the potential impact of land use changes in different areas, and until these tasks are completed, any discussion of development, potential impact fees, and road expansion are a waste of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Andy Tilton. Just a couple of things I'd like for you to think about as you're going through these, and I don't envy you going through them. Just as the previous speaker had mentioned, there's almost a daunting task. But some of the things have some physical constraints that I just wanted to point out. One is that there's about 80 square miles of watershed upstream of this part of the city, and that's if you don't count the overflow from the adjacent watershed, which occurs in times of larger storms, which would bring it up to about 300 square miles. So when you start to try to do any kind of storage to make any real impact on that, for instance, 1 inch over 80 square miles would take 1,000 acres of land about 4.5 feet deep. And that's just 1 inch. And in that storm event of a 25-year event, over 3 days, you're probably looking at 10 inches of rain total. So with some of that stored out on the land. So just keep that in mind, that it's a lot of water. And then if, in most cases, you're going to have to pump it. So you're going to need 3 million gallons a day per inch to get the water moved up if you're trying to do it over a 4 or 5 day period. If you want to do it all in 1 day, it'd only take you a 13 million gallon a day pump to get that up. And so 13 million gallons a day is just under 1 million gallons a minute. So that's a lot of pumpage. The second thing is that while sheet flow coming to the city, if it were restored, might have some help on storage, it's not the end all. In 1936, long before there was a Kiel Canal, long before there was an I-75, there was major flooding in the city of Bonita Springs. Then it was just a small fishing community, not the city. But that was long before a lot of man had touched the landscape to the east of us. And we still had major flooding in what's now the city. So just doing that will not fix it. Question on the modeling. The overall South Lee County area was modeled in '99 and 2009. I'm not sure what a new model is going to tell us. It's just, we can do another one. I might even like it if somebody would hire me to do it, but I don't think it's going to tell us a lot of new information. One of the things that's been talked about is doing more storage on some types of projects, but not doing more storage on other types of land, because then the space wouldn't be available for future water to be stored. In my opinion, it applies in both cases one way or the other. Either store more water and not have as much space available for future storage, or let that water out more quickly and have it available for more storage. I don't see doing one way on one property and one on another. I wish you well with your monitoring. If you go that route, we might have a year of 40 inches of rain and we might have almost nothing to monitor. Or we might have another year like 95 and we have a lot to monitor. I've never been able to hit a good year to get monitoring that was perfect for what I wanted, so good luck with that. And the last thing is, if we do storage out there, if we took the whole area and did nothing but storage, we still wouldn't solve the flooding in the city of Bonita Springs. So don't think that we're going to be able, for this project, to store our way out of flooding. And there's a lot of difference between water quality treatment and design storm flooding. And I think you just need to look at the physics of those. And I thank you much.
Thanks, Andy.
Good afternoon, Deborah McLean, publisher of the Banana Peel and city editor. I would like to clarify or add to 2 points by Mr. Tilton. The 1936 flood was indeed a tragedy, and it was caused by the berm from the railroad tracks, much like I-75 and much like US 41. And so it was the railroad that put Old Bonita under the water because it was an unnatural berm. And I'd like to say that 1 year is not long enough for monitoring. He's absolutely correct. We need 5 to 7 years of monitoring. And in Sanibel and in 6 Mile Cypress, they have continual volunteer monitoring, which helps our entire communities of Hendry County, Lee County, and Collier County. So he is correct. 1 year is not enough. 5 and 7 years is more like it. And it should be ongoing after that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. For the record, Kathy McGrath. First of all, I've stated this before and I'll state it again. This situation and area has been studied and picked apart by the piranhas forever, and we do not need more studies. For the naysayers, as far as they're concerned, there'll never be enough studies because all they want to do is postpone the inevitable. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There should be responsible development there with proper infrastructure. And the only way that makes sense is with a private-public partnership. There doesn't have to be 1,200 units per acre. There doesn't have to be 500. That's up to City Council to make up their mind. And I want to remind everyone, first of all the people that live in the gated communities south of Bonita Beach Road to the east were once in designated DRGR, and some of those are the biggest outspoken opponents. We don't want any more people. Then you've got the mentality of some of the other residents, and many of them on Hickory Island, they just don't want any more people, period. Now, whether any development ever happens there, Logan Boulevard is going to come up from Collier County. And believe it or not, folks, 951 is going to go through. Now, the roads are going to have to be developed and widened and improved, whether any development goes out there in our DRGR or not. So let's think the proper way to do this. Like I said, public-private partnership. Bonita Springs Utilities is ready, willing, and able to do the water and the wastewater. And contrary to what a lot of people think, they can handle it. So for right now, those are my comments, but I think it's very important. Thank you. And thank you for all your hard work, because I do appreciate it.
Thanks, Kathy. Anyone else for public comment? Going once, going twice, sold. All right, we'll move on to approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
you were both kind last time we met in modifying the agenda a slight bit by moving forward our discussion of Kevin Irwin, having it at the beginning of the discussion rather than at the tail end. I would hope that we could adopt the same policy again today and talk about Kevin Irwin for at least 15, 20 minutes or a half hour at the beginning of the session, and then move on to the other agenda items. And I'd like to propose a recommendation, and it's shown in your package as Roman 4B. Now, I can read that to you.
And I don't think we had a discussion of Kevin Irwin on the agenda. So what agenda item are we moving?
I'm agenda item 4B, Is my development
List of additional
following
items?
from what we discussed for Kevin Irwin's study? What I'm suggesting is we need to move out smartly, either sole source or a competitive bidding, but let's get the show on the road, get the data that we need, because the faster we do that, the more informed we are about making decisions about water here or water there, and how flow, sheet flow or no sheet flow. But we're just postponing the inevitable. We need to get the data and have it modeled correctly.
And Scott, if I can interject,
Yeah, please.
I think what Dave is referring to is item 4 is the continuing discussion of the retention area items.
Right.
4A is the ones that had already been broken down into one-page examples. 4B there are 2 separate items under 4B that came in since the last meeting. One is the handout that Fred had given us at the very end of the last meeting, I think it was, that we included in this packet. And then 4B also includes an email and suggested recommended language from Dave. So I think that's where we're talking
Okay,
about.
so it's a member item, or a proposal for the parking lot.
Right.
Retention area,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Okay. So it's,
And I'd like for us to talk about it first rather than at the last end of the meeting again.
okay, I'm,
I would
sorry,
suggest
go
we
ahead.
at least get the minutes done, because I think we also, on that topic, I think staff was going to provide some feedback on existing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, so
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Thank you for listening.
okay, well, so let's move on to approve the minutes,
Then come back to it, please.
and then we'll at least discuss, we'll come back to it and discuss it. So approval of the minutes from last meeting? Anybody?
I had one thing I wanted to
Please.
mention. On page 3, midway down, committee member Polanitza stated she listened to the city in that paragraph. I think that the end is misleading. It says, but they need to state there's 100% agreement that there should be no gas station in the DRG. The important part of that was that there was a dissenting opinion or a minority report, not that there be 100% approval. That was just an example that I gave. And I wanted to make sure that the minutes were amended to show that we were going to give city council a minority report, or at least so we showed them the vote on each of the topics. And so if that could be noted. It didn't really represent what I was talking about, I guess. That's it.
Okay. Anyone else, any changes?
There was, on first page, George Jonas was spelled wrong, and I think Bassinet is wrong, but I'm not sure about that one.
Dennis, can you speak into the...
Oh, I said the first page, a couple names might have been spelled wrong. I know George Jonas was, and then Chuck Bassinet might be a little different than spelling there. And then on the third page where, let's see, it'd be about the third paragraph down, where committee member Forbes said the task force doesn't think the task force should take direction from the city staff. Somewhere in there, I guess I'd like to put that I responded that because I think he was referring to something I had said, and I didn't say take direction, but receive input was really what I think I had said. And I repeated that after he made that statement. So that's all.
Okay. Anyone else? I've just got one on page 4, under water quality, item number 1, the last provision. It says motion carried 6-1 with Dennis Gilkey abstaining. It's really 6-0 with Dennis Gilkey abstaining. Other than that, any motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Corey, any second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Okay. As Ms. Schultz pointed out, we've got a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it. And I know we probably want to talk about whatever water monitoring as part of an item. But I mean, I think what we should do is go through the items that have been submitted and that we've looked at for months. And then at the next meeting, we'll bring up, because I know Fred brought some up. I've got some that weren't included that I sent John back in July that I'll have to resubmit to you. So,
Scott?
no, I know.
Could I say something before?
You sure can, please.
Well, I listened to what Linda Schwartz said. Almost misspoke there. Really, a couple things bother me a little bit. One is that these parking lot items, it's not clear who submitted them, and I think it's important that we know. I think the public has a right to know, and I think that some of the public may feel that some of us have a problem with being able to submit it. So I think there should be ownership on them, number one. Number two, I know at least 2 or 3 times different people on the task force tried to discuss a parking lot item, and we said, no, it's not time to do that. I really think there's some merit in allowing each member here to say, here's my number one pick. Start with Tori, she gives hers. You go to Nicole, she gives hers. You go to Colin, he gives his. Scott has his, Dennis got his, David has his. Probably it'll be the Kevin Irwin monitoring recommendation. I'll have one. Then we put those to bed and we go back and forth. And that'll probably catch most of these, but not necessarily. And I think that's important to every member, in all fairness, that every member that has priority items, that those be discussed as quickly as they can, because some of these parking lot items, if they were to be approved, they might be interpreted to negate the item that somebody really wanted to at least have fully discussed, because, well, we already dealt with that and majority of us approved it. Now, I do think there is merit. I think it would be fair to all the members. I don't know what my fellow task force members think, but I know that's what I think.
Well, and I think, we've talked about how we're going to structure going through all these items, and we can continue to talk about it and figure out a way to go forward, but that's just wasting more and more time. So we've all had these since July. As far as who submitted the original comment, I don't even know if we can figure that out. We'd have to go back into the record for each meeting, and I think that would be unduly burdensome. So I think by having everybody's comments, I think we know where each individual task force member stands. Now, once the issue comes up before the task force, it becomes the task force issue to discuss,
Right.
with every member having their own voice to be heard.
Any item that's now been submitted, it will be voted on.
I sure hope so. We've got a
Okay.
limited amount of time to do it.
And it will be, and we'll take a roll call if it's not unanimous and all that, right? So we
if
we
need
know
be.
what the vote is, so it goes to city council as a minority report.
Dennis, did you have something?
Well, I think I was pleasantly surprised that we got through as many as we did last time, in the period of time we had to do it, since we had other things being discussed. So I think if we can get on with it, and then we know we have duplications, we know we have some that are going to drop out. So I think it can go fairly quickly if we let it happen. I think the other part of it, though, and this is why I was wondering, even on what Dave, the actual specific wording, make sure that everybody looking at the same thing that we're, considering, so that
Right.
we're not, because I'm not real sure exactly which one Dave is going to be talking about here, but anyway, I'm just saying, that would make it go
Tori, did you have
quickly to
something?
make sure that we're very clear.
I wanted to say something. I think that this is what I gathered from the city council meeting that I watched the other day, that they're looking for us to find some consensus on the science and to find some consensus as a group. I don't think the individual who brought it up I don't think also that we represent one city council member. We may have been appointed by one city council member, but we were appointed by the entire city council. And they were clear, I think, as was Audrey, that we work for that group and we should try to work as a group. And I think that the bringing of the individual just becomes polarizing, and also I don't think it's of any use to the consensus building that we're trying to do to give information to the city so that they can then take action. We're not even about taking action, we're about recommendations.
Yeah, but Tori, there are going to be places that we respectfully differ. And city council said they wanted to see anything that was brought up And so that's, so there will.
Right, and that was the point of the minority report.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and Fred, we talked
So
about
we've got
having a
that
minority
covered.
report.
All right, so-
I think.
All right, so I would suggest we just move on and go to water quality item number 10, and just let's bang these out as quick as we can and get as many.
May I ask
Yeah.
that we include the Kevin Irwin study as number 1 on our agenda next time we meet?
Well, yeah, and here's what I think we should do, because I know Fred submitted a bunch, you submitted some, I submitted some a while back, and I didn't see them, and I'm sorry, I didn't find them until this time, but they were on my red line that I sent to you. But, so, let's get those well in advance so that we can have time to consider them, as opposed to send them on a Friday and have just the weekend to consider them.
Okay.
And Scott, just one thing, and we can maybe discuss it as an item next time, but at the last meeting, we had decided that probably pulling the concept of a DRGR working group out of specific policies and making it its own
Right.
recommendation
Right.
would be a good idea. So I went ahead and just drafted some language on that. I'll pass it out. We can talk about it today or next time.
Let's talk about it next time, but
Okay.
thank you for doing that. Yeah, that's, I
And I'll
think
make
that's
sure
something
that
that's
it's in the
clear.
packet for
Yep.
next time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. I was gonna say hold it until later, but.
Back to the, on the water
Nope.
monitor.
Actually, you know what? Can you hold it till later? Can you pass those back to her?
Okay.
Just hold it till later.
Okay.
It's just gonna confuse people.
Okay.
On the water monitoring, was that an item that was sent by email, or was that something in the packet from before?
This was something from Dave as a suggestion to add to the
Right.
parking lot
Was it-
items.
It's in
Was-
your package.
It's in, under
near the end.
4B.
And it's also one of the ones that I put together.
Okay.
Okay. All right,
There.
in 4B.
Oh, and John, I've got a suggestion. You submitted the ones we all agreed on, and they're now numbered 1 through 6,
yours,
as
okay.
opposed to keeping the old numbering. Can we keep the old numbering system until they're final, then we can
Sure.
renumber them? It'll just
Absolutely.
be easier to
Okay.
remember.
Yeah, items 4 and 5.
4 and 5 are tabled, so it's
have
1
been
through
tabled, so
3, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
There you go.
Perfect. Okay. So item number 10, which is monitor the improvements of flowways outside the Bonita city limits according to the 2009 Watershed Update Plan, South Branch of Estero River, Halfway Creek, southern connection to Cocohatchee Canal, or more southerly outfall systems.
Mr. Chairman, I inserted implement improvements. I got carried away. It's hard for us to implement something that doesn't belong to us, so I changed it back to monitor.
Okay. And I couldn't tell, Dennis, if you had any changes on that one. I don't think you did.
Was the language, which language were we kind of working off of?
Well,
Nicole's, or?
No, I was starting with the.
At the top.
With
Oh,
the top,
okay.
and then I guess you inserted Public City Works, or City Public Works.
So we're in what, water quantity, 7?
Water quantity, number 10.
10, okay.
Yeah, mine is, I think, similar to Nicole's, pretty much.
Right.
There were 6, just so everybody knows, if you recall, there was 11 final recommendations made, and I think what the district had said was they had completed 6 of the 11, so I think what we're saying is, get them completed
Right.
and coordinated with the city and the, I'm sorry, the county and the.
And by the district, do you mean the water management district? So that you mentioned district to lobby for
Yes,
funds?
that would be water management
And
district,
Nicole
yeah.
said South Florida
Yes,
Water. Okay,
yeah.
so that's the same. Okay.
So are we going with Nicole's?
Yeah, are we
language?
okay with Nicole's language? And then are we, where there's really no completion time and it's continued monitoring, and then really no cost to the city?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
just some staff time, so.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Could there be some, the monitoring is one thing, is there some way that we can either encourage or use something that's a little bit more proactive that?
Well, I've got
we would-
monitoring, or encourage the improvements of the flow.
Oh, yeah, you had that in yours, yeah, monitoring. I'd like
We
that-
can add that, we can
I'd
add.
like to
Just add and
encourage
encourage.
or something that would say that we're not just watching, we're hopefully pushing
Monitor and
somebody to
motivate.
do something, yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so,
like that.
so in water quantity 10, we're using Nicole's language as the baseline. I'm going to add some language about staff time only.
Right, no
and
cost.
I'm not sure that I understood
Well,
the
it's
rest.
now monitor and encourage the improvements of flowways outside the Bonita city limits. So it's a combination of my language and Nicole's language.
Yeah. Okay, so in the very first line, monitor and encourage?
Right?
And then hop down to Nicole.
And then this project should be coordinated by the city in coordination with South Florida Water Management District.
Gotcha. Okay.
And is a continual project until those items are completed, I guess is probably the best way to word that, at no cost other than staff time.
Gotcha.
So
Does
then
everybody
do we-
understand that one?
Do we vote on it?
Yep.
or- yeah.
Everybody understand that one?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right, we're going to just do by hands, hopefully. All those in favor? All right, unanimous, beauty. Off to a good start.
There's an error on this.
Right.
graph.
Number 11? Yep,
It
yep.
says Jefferson Land.
Right.
Jefferson Lane.
Jefferson Lane, right, so the initial proposed language, implement the recommendations of the Jefferson Lane flowway, well, we're correcting that, Jefferson Land flowway to Jefferson Lane flowway, restoration analysis and Pine Lake rehydration, utilize additional financial resources from new DRGR development as available as and necessary. This project should be coordinated.
Isn't this a duplication of something else we've already approved?
Well, we've already talked about rehydrating the Pine Lake Preserve. We did not talk about specifically the Jefferson Lane flowway.
Thought we did.
Well, we started the discussion at the last meeting, but we didn't come to a resolution. So we were going to add the Jefferson Lane flowway to the Pine Lake Preserve restoration, but we couldn't get consensus on the one holdout. Apparently, there's one property owner who's,
That was the confusion was, we had a verbal agreement pretty much on that whole thing, and then a gentleman that owned this little isolated parcel died. And the agreement, of course, went away, the verbal agreement went away with that, and there are other people involved now, so I had forgotten about that event. Was stuck in my head that we already had that all sorted out, and it fell apart, so.
Was that
There is a-
tabled, number 7? Was that one tabled?
oh, maybe that was tabled, the number 7, right.
No, I
No?
believe it was tabled.
No, number 7 went through.
Oh, well,
Sorry,
then
number
maybe it
7
is
went through.
duplicate then.
But we had originally talked about including, oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
And hopefully,
Thank you.
we don't want to necessarily link the two, and I mean, if Pine Lake needed to happen and Jefferson Lane wasn't ready to happen yet, we don't want to stall one because of the other, because they are two separate things, really.
Separate projects, separate dollars.
They should be, really.
Yeah, if I can clarify, water quantity number 7 that you agreed to last time reads, restore to the best extent possible the natural historic Jefferson flowway as a component of the rehydration of Pine Lake Preserve. This project, ba, 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 ba. So you have addressed it
Right.
already, I think, to the extent you need to.
Let me make a comment, and that would be if at least the majority of us would support that the city should do this monitoring and then eventually modeling based on the data they get, I think that we should be prepared should that pass, and I have no idea whether it will or not. If I knew, I could make money in the stock market, but there ought to be a caveat. If it did pass, and any of these projects should be modeled and all that to make sure. The Jefferson Flowway, I don't see as any issue, because it's.
Well, and Fred, I think you're trying to act as, which you can, act as an engineer for the projects. All the projects, once they're approved, are going to have to go through some sort of approval and engineering process that,
Well, yeah, but if we were collecting this modeling, this ground proofing data and developing a model, it would be, in my opinion, premature to approve or have a project having money spent on it that may be told that it shouldn't be done because of what we find out.
well, and I disagree, and I think even Kevin Irwin would disagree and
I
say,
asked Kevin Irwin.
okay, well, I think when he was here, he said you
Asked
shouldn't.
Kevin Irwin at the
Okay.
workshop.
If I can finish my sentence.
Okay.
I think when he was here, he said that the monitoring would be helpful, but it shouldn't slow down any projects that are beneficial. So I think to the extent it's beneficial, and we've got city staff who's going to do their job to determine if something makes sense, I think the ground truthing is really just a,
I know I spoke to him at great length about that. So
okay, well, good.
that,
All right.
You know,
What are we doing with
let me
number
add that
11?
I think as far as there's probably a lot of things that other things too, that might be a sequential or might not. And I think we're identifying the issues and the how you do it, or even when, or how much, those are things that the city's gonna have to kind of sort through that. I mean, I can't see us trying to say you do this, then that, and that, and that. I mean, I think you just have to say, these are the things we think are important to do.
Okay.
And also, excuse me, with the Jefferson Flowway, I think that one was important to sequence and tie to Pine Lake Preserve, because the concern was if you facilitated water flow through that flowway, it could just serve to overdrain instead of being connected with the rehydration upstream. So I think that it is important, as we've tied the two together in the number 5 of our already approved consensus recommendations. I think that
7.
All right.
covers
7.
number 11.
Right, so do we want to strike number 11?
That's what I'm hearing, that
I
11 is
would
a
recommend we strike
duplicate.
it.
Right.
Okay.
Nicole said number 5. You meant number 7, I think.
Well,
Well,
it's,
yeah, we
it's
talked.
number
we-
5 in the
Yeah, we
packet,
talked about
but-
that. It's old
correct,
number
it's
7.
number
We're
7
gonna,
in this
Oh.
packet.
we're gonna go back to the old numbering. It is number 7.
All right, so we're dropping 11.
Well, that's a question. Are we okay striking 11? I guess we don't need to really vote on striking
I
it.
think I'm all right with it. I think
As long as we're covered. I think they're
there
duplicate.
there
yeah.
are various ways to deal with the potential for overdraining, but, I mean, I don't mind dropping that one. I think it's gonna happen anyway.
But I would add, though, that the Pine Lake rehydration may, even if the Jefferson Flowway didn't do it, there's a chance that also ties into the old riverbed restoration too. So, they can be combined or separated, I think, in reality.
There are a lot of ways to deal with that,
Yeah.
but.
Okay, we're striking number 11. Number 12, when Bonita Grand is widened for additional traffic capacity, enlarge the bridge opening at Keel Canal to allow also for the extension of the Bonita Trail into crew lands for connection to those trails.
Shouldn't the word when be changed to if?
Potentially. I mean, my concern is not connecting trails and allowing for bridge openings. It's talking about Bonita Grand and traffic and,
I think we should delete the whole thing.
I mean, I certainly don't mind saying, seek connections between the Bonita Trail and crew lands.
Oh, yeah,
I
actually,
mean-
that was the other point I made in my comments that I sent to John, which I think you all have got, that really, even though that would be a nice idea, what does it have to do with any of the recharge, water quality, water quantity, pollution, drinking water, or whatever? It would be a nice thing to happen, but I think it's not in our purview. So I agree with David.
I agree with you on that, too.
One thing that we might
Happen, but.
One thing we might want to consider for this is if Bonita Grand is widened and if there would be the capacity for some sort of linear filter marsh or some sort of ability to slow the water down, maybe clean it a little bit more as it's going down the side of that road. I don't know if there would be the width to do it or not, but that is something that I had suggested in my comments, so I would toss that out. I think that is relevant to what we're talking about here, and we could word it to say if the road is widened and if there's available space to do it, then we recommend the city consider that.
I know that there is space available north of Terry Street, that it has been set aside, and I would imagine it was south also, because that was the proposed route for 951 originally also. So I think the land is set aside for the road. Whether there's extra land for filter marsh or not, I wouldn't know. But I do know that they are considering upgrading those, doing something with those conveyances along, because it's.
And Nicole, I'd imagine you're not limiting filter marshes to Bonita Grand, so I don't know why we wouldn't
No.
just blanket recommendation of anytime there's a road improvement project, seek additional land for a filter marsh, linear filter marsh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that would be.
So make
that
it
would
more
be good.
general.
Without actually mentioning the road.
Right.
Yeah, I
Which road?
don't think we need to
So we
mention the
wouldn't be
road.
talking about that bridge, widening some bridge or something.
I don't know that you'd have filter marshes on every single road. I think,
Oh, I don't think you would either.
No, this
I
isn't
think
recommending.
we would say, recommend you look into the possibility of including filter marsh when you do a road project.
And not just looking at it as potentially feasible for Bonita Grand.
How would it be worded again, please?
I think I have it.
Go ahead, Audrey.
Well, what I was going to suggest is on the second page of Nicole's language, if you just take out the when Bonita Grand and just talk about any roadway improvements, because I think the conversation has to make it more generic. So when any roadway project is, or roadway is widened and then the rest of her language seems fairly generic about how they could work. You want to start with that
I
language?
think I'd invert that sentence. I'd put the traffic or the road at the end of the sentence, end of the paragraph rather than the beginning.
Well, I don't think we need to limit it necessarily to widened either. I mean, I think when any significant road improvement project is undertaken,
I
consider
think-
the inclusion of a linear filter marsh within the right-of-way to provide for the slow conveyance of stormwater.
Right, I would rather consider rather than allow, because that allow seems to make it for every single road, and it might not be feasible. This gives them the option of at least looking at it, that we recommend they look at that
Right.
as an option.
And I
Okay.
don't think we need to limit it as conveyance of stormwater to the south. Sorry, John.
Well, conveyance of stormwater.
I'm going to wait for you
Yeah.
guys to tell me how it's all changed and then what you think it now sounds like. Anybody want to give it a shot?
Want me to go for it?
Sure.
All right, I think it's when any significant roadway improvement project is undertaken, consider for the inclusion of a linear filter marsh within the right-of-way to provide for the slow conveyance of stormwater with the additional benefit of pollution removal along the length of the system.
Yep, that's good.
And then take out the in addition and
Correct.
all the language
Correct, strike
afterwards.
the in addition.
And that would probably be then a city project,
Right.
not
Yeah.
district.
Well, although, depending on the roadway, there might be some,
Or county.
right, district, county, or
Yeah.
state funds, depending on where it is, but. Oh, all right, so does everybody get that one? Do we need that reread?
But reread one more time.
Audrey, want to give it a shot?
Sure. And when any significant road is widened or is
No.
widened for
No,
additional.
no, no,
Like,
no,
we have
no
improved.
widened, yeah.
We changed
Whenever
it.
any significant road improvement project is undertaken.
Okay, consider the inclusion of a linear filter marsh within the right-of-way for the slow conveyance of stormwater with the additional benefit of pollution removal along the length of the system. Period. The project should be coordinated by the city and target, I don't know if there's ever a completion date, there's no completion
Yeah, it's
date.
a kind of an ongoing,
Yeah.
and the
And is
cost
ongoing.
is gonna be dependent upon the project and the
And the
length of the
road.
system.
Right.
Okay.
All right, everybody get that? All right, let's vote. Everybody in favor of that one? Anybody opposed? Are you abstaining?
No, no, I
Oh.
don't need to abstain on that.
Okay, did you vote
Was
for
that
it?
an
I didn't
affirmative
see you.
vote?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So there we go, we voted for that
Limited
one.
choices,
All
Dennis.
right.
Number 13.
All right, number 13, encourage South Florida Water Management District and Lee County to purchase the remaining outlots within the crew acquisition boundary so that water can be legally raised to improve storage on the crew lands, as well as improving recharge similar to what is being proposed for the Southern Crew project.
I'm not sure why this would be coordinated with the Bonita DRGR working group as much as it would be with the city. I know you added that
Well-
in, but.
Yeah, well, I guess I was thinking that probably the Water Management District would be the most likely entity to acquire and hold title to these out parcels.
Or 2020, yeah.
Or 2020, and so just having the working group be a part of it. And not quite sure if we need the phrase "so the water can be legally raised to improve storage, it makes it sound like we're considering illegally.
Illegally raising it,
doing
right.
and
Water
not.
can be raised.
I-
yeah.
I think under water quality, we have another item about purchasing 10 or more acre parcels, 10 or more acres. So I'm not so sure from a water quantity standpoint. I mean, we heard Andy talk about it this morning. You know, buying 5-acre lots here and there is really not going to add all that much
Let me
for
clarify. This
water
is- this-
quantity.
I think I might have did some drafting of this. I don't remember if I did the first draft, but this is the crew acquisition boundary, which is mostly outside the city limits. So this is not something the city would do. I think the other one was inside the city limits, if not, I
Southern
think
crew, right.
the 10-acre parcels.
Right, right.
This is really, most of the 2,500 acres that's not acquired by crew, is in the Lee DRGR, actually.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for
Are there
clarifying.
specific lots we want to have funded rather than others? This seems awfully vague and generated.
I think water management
Outlots.
knows, and I think water management knows the land that it wants, and I think that
How do I-
2020
How do I
studies that.
cost it or fund it if I don't know the?
Well, this isn't a city funding issue. This is just, all we're doing is, thanks for Dennis clarified, but all we're doing is encouraging crew to buy, or South Florida Water Management, Lee County to buy the additional crew lands.
Yeah, crew was set up 25 years ago, and the funding has never been completed of those, and there's a lot of outlots that could store additional water outside the city limits. So that's kind of where that,
I was just looking for some more specificity about, X, Y, and Z lots are real important for us to take care of first.
Well, I would say
I have my
anything
thoughts,
within the
but-
crew acquisition boundary is very
all
important.
the
Yeah, this is part of the
So-
80 acre, or 80 square miles of
Yeah.
upland
So-
watershed
Let me see if, I think I'm
upstream.
picking up a consensus. Would it be something along the lines of encouraging Water Management District in Lee County to purchase the remaining outlots within the unincorporated county and within the crew acquisition boundary? And then we skip the part about legal arrays, and then just jump to improve storage on crew lands as well as improving recharge, period.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I think that's right. All right, and then who's coordinating this? Because really all we're doing is encouraging it. I mean, this could be part of the working
It's
group, but
2020
but it's
mainly.
really, yeah, I mean, it's,
Mainly
Yeah,
2020.
I would say the district in 2020, so district in the county.
I think this is similar to what the city did when they requested the district to help to get Southern Crew funded. It's that type of thing. So it would be probably ultimately city council, through its staff, saying, we really want you to focus on this, and if there's some funding available, to spend it,
Right.
to do these things.
It's a little bit of a squeaky wheel, isn't it? I mean, getting the city to write a letter and make sure that we stay forefront in their mind.
Okay, so the language I have then is encourage South Florida Water Management District and Lee County to purchase the remaining outlots within the unincorporated county and within the crew acquisition boundaries to improve storage on the crew lands as well as improving recharge. This policy effort should be coordinated by Lee County 2020 as well as, was it the Water Management District, I think you said?
mhm.
Water Management District, targeted for complete, and basically it's an ongoing project at a cost to be determined.
Well, it won't cost us.
Well,
'cause
yeah,
in
it's
the
not a
city
cost to the
limit.
city, at no cost to the
No cost to
city.
the city, right, okay.
And maybe instead of completion, targeted for implementation, I think is the word that Nicole suggested, in 3 months is what Nicole suggested. I'm fine with that, implementation in 3 months. All right, everybody clear on that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Ready for a vote? All those in favor? All right. All right, number 14. This is adding to the inventory of open space designated for water storage by establishing reservoirs.
One thing I'd like to make some comments about this one.
Please.
It's been mentioned a couple of times by a couple of different people, particularly by Kevin Irwin, that we might be able to utilize the remnants of, or whether it's the complete or remnants of the Kiel Canal as storage. And I'd like to hear more about that idea from him or from some engineers that have some ideas about that, because something's going to happen to that, whether it's left flowing or whether it's completely closed up and filled in, or whether it's possibly utilized as a tremendous amount of water storage. It's already there. It's already been dug, and it could possibly be used as a huge area of, could be a huge linear reservoir to deal with water quality and quantity. And it's an interesting thing to think about, but it hasn't really been discussed here yet, and I'd love to hear more about that.
It makes more sense to me than this. I have trouble with this one in particular because it's vague, and I'm not sure if we want the idea of various small ponds around, or it just doesn't seem to ring for me. This
We can
one.
make it less vague by talking about the Kiel Canal.
Right,
That's
exactly.
already there.
Right.
It's already there. It's already empty all dry season, practically empty. It's
I mean,
not
I'm
empty,
for,
it
I'm
flows,
for
but
acquiring
it's-
more, go ahead, sorry.
It's not empty during the dry season, but it's very low. It
Right.
comes up as much as 9 feet sometimes, and that's a lot of water, because that's a huge area of.
Right, but I
it's already
think by
there.
using the word reservoir, we're almost mislabeling what that Kiel Canal.
Yeah, a reservoir would be holding the water and really not letting it
Right.
go.
And
Well,
that's the
it could-
trouble I have with
That
it
could be one of the
as a
possibilities,
reservoir.
though. It could be held and not let go at all times. I mean, obviously, it would have a control structure on it, at least
Well,
one,
yeah, no,
maybe more.
and I agree. I think that reservoir kind of gives a connotation that it never is intended to flow.
Well, I'm not
So, yeah,
married
so
to the
maybe
idea
we
of
need
using the
to-
word reservoir at all, but I think.
But
Find
that-
something
on
that better
on
describes
this
it.
point 14, the use of the word reservoir is the problem that I have. I don't have a problem with trying to access more open space, but designating one particular piece of land as a reservoir, as you say, a permanent body of water versus another that might be an upland or already recharging, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've heard from enough people that I don't know if it makes sense to even talk about putting a reservoir within the DRGR. I mean, we can
This
talk
would-
about
this
filter
would-
marshes, we can talk about,
Point,
This wouldn't be in the DRGR. This would be in the county, but we would have to coordinate with the
Right.
county regarding this, I mean, obviously.
well, I mean, I think this originally was just adding to the inventory of open space
Yeah.
designated for water storage by establishing reservoirs. I would imagine this was intended originally within the DRGR.
I think so, but
Okay,
I'm
okay.
trying to bring up a new issue.
Understood. Fred?
I'd like to make 2 points. Number one, several of your experts did say creation of large reservoirs were one of the most effective ways to reduce flooding. Secondly, they also didn't talk about a reservoir that holds water all the time. The idea was that it would hold water during a major event or several decent events, and then it would let the water out later after the crises had abated. So
Well, then then we would want them to be closer to a tributary that would take them out, then it would be lands along the canal, that's the problem, is if you have one that's like stuck out in the middle of the DRGR and it holds the water, then where are you going to trickle it out from? It's just very vague.
Let me clarify.
If the
Please,
experts
Dennis?
said it,
Sorry, Fred,
there
Dennis?
must be some merit.
The experts that I think you're referring to would be the 2009 watershed update that Roger Kopp did,
Roger
right?
Kopp.
Okay.
And
That
Kevin
was to
specifically mentioned it.
Hold on, please.
That was to pump water from the Quinn Street area, which was our worst area of flooding. And flooding doesn't mean water in the Gulf swales. It means homes were flooded from the floor elevation. It was to pump water from there to a 1,000-acre reservoir that was pumped 10 feet high in that case. And that was most effective for flooding there, which was west of 75. Not flooding in the DRGR, not flooding in the areas south of Beach Road, but flooding that had occurred historically in the worst area of Bonita flooding, which was around Quinn Street. That was what that was about.
Now, what Mr. Kopp said when he addressed City Council, as well as us, was that reservoirs also, he didn't limit it to that location. It was more generic. So, but you're right on the one point, but not, it is In fact, your the 99 Lee County study, which was a predecessor of the 2009, said the same thing.
Well, no,
Large
it didn't. It
reservoirs
said
were
this,
important.
what it referred to was storage, parentheses, in crew lands. And that's when it talked about storage, it referred specifically to storage in crew lands, which was what we talked about with 30-something thousand, 60-something thousand acres that we have that was purchased for that purpose.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Okay, I want to make sure that my point's understood, that Kevin Irwin, within these proceedings, in this room, mentioned the Kiel Canal and
Right.
possibility for storage of water in the same fashion as a reservoir.
I agree.
So he mentioned that, and we never got into it any deeper, but I'd like to hear more about that.
So should we word it then as, instead of adding to the inventory of open space designated for water storage, but instead say that we would encourage the city to look into and not even acquiring, because that would take out the Kiel Canal idea, but look into the possibility of reservoirs within the city of Bonita Springs. I mean,
The Kiel Canal's not within the
Oh,
city
yeah,
of
yeah.
Bonita
okay,
Springs,
yeah.
but it would directly benefit, more than anyone else, it would directly benefit Bonita.
Right, when I'm hearing Cullum,
Cooperation.
what I'm hearing Cullum say, which, I mean, I couldn't support this, it's too vague, and
I agree.
reservoirs is a
Yeah,
tough issue.
right.
this is a little
The
different.
science is mixed. What Cullum is saying is, look into utilizing the Kiel Canal for additional water storage to the extent that's
Right.
feasible, and I would support that. So, do you want to,
I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's make,
okay,
John's busy now, but let's mention that again if you would.
okay. So I think we're modifying this one, John.
Go for it.
What was it, coordinate or look into the feasibility
Yeah,
of
yeah,
storing additional
investigate the-
water behind Kiel
Investigate the
Canal?
feasibility of,
Project should be coordinated with South Florida Water Management District.
And you could then mention a Kiel Canal reservoir so that it gives the idea of what we're talking about holding the water. But
Yeah, I mean,
as a potential reservoir, I mean, it's just some suggestion that would.
I wouldn't use the word reservoir.
okay.
I'm
Well, I
sorry,
kinda like
I'm-
I
the
think
word
the district
reservoir.
would flip if they
I
thought
think
we
so
were
too.
trying to turn the Kiel Canal into a reservoir by their definition of
Yeah,
reservoir.
but they are
Right.
talking about filling it too, so I mean. that,
Right,
you know,
no,
we're-
I think.
Well, I don't think they'll
another
be opposed to
term.
storing more water behind it,
Right.
but what I don't want to do is say we're going to start pumping water into it,
No,
which is
no.
what I think when you
Staging
say
water.
reservoir.
Don't need to do that.
I
mean,
think
it'll
staging
fill up on its
water,
own.
putting in control structures that better stage water back, something which then disperses the water over the landscape, maybe.
Yeah, and I'd like to be kind of vague about it, because I'd like to hear, I'd like to hear.
We're
Kevin
doing a good
Irwin's
job at
suggestion. Yeah, absolutely.
So should we
I wanna
just
hear
table
Kevin's
this one?
suggestions, you know,
Should we
like-
just table this one then?
No, 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 no. I don't want to table it. I want to mention the Kiel Canal and.
Colin, if you can give me some, because so far all I've got is look into the possibility of, so I'm not sure.
Utilizing the Kiel Canal for water storage. That's pretty much it. I mean, I
The
want to
Kiel Canal and adjacent lands.
No, I mean, I think,
Just the
I think
canal?
we're trying to make the point that the Kiel Canal remains empty throughout the whole dry season.
The area east of
And-
the weir,
You know, and it fills up during the wet season, but we may want it to retain water through the whole dry season and be able to utilize it to benefit flows and levels. You know, it's an interesting idea, and I want to just convey that question to someone like Kevin and Eric Livingston and Roger Kopp. Maybe all those guys would have ideas on this, I'm sure, so
Okay,
that's what,
so the language I've got is look into the possibility of utilizing the Kiel Canal for additional water storage.
suits fine, that suits me. They'll fill in put the info in to us.
Do we want to say during the dry season by
Yeah,
staging the
yeah,
water
absolutely.
higher?
I mean, yes, although that, you know, it's certainly we can't put any more water into it in the wet season.
Right.
It's full, but, yeah, in the dry season, sure, that's fine.
Okay. Look into the possibility of utilizing the Kiel Canal for additional water storage during the dry season. Period.
That's fine. I mean, as as Fred probably knows, the purpose of the weir on Bonita Grand is to let the water out pre-event if it's already full. You know, if it's already tends to be full, you could close it well before the event, let it out right before the event, then there's more storage space left out there in the future. There's, you know, those control structures allow some manipulation of the water level, in other words. But this would be along those lines, but even more so, and, you know.
Okay. Is there a vote on this?
And would this be done by water management?
Yeah, I
Because it
think,
is
I think we
their.
need to finalize that.
yeah.
The project should be coordinated by
Yeah.
South Florida Water Management District,
Lee County.
targeted for
I
initiation.
mean, it affects us, but we're not going to do it, right? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't fill in the blanks unless you tell me what they are.
Right.
No, it's a cooperative project. I mean, I think
With
we've
with
covered
whom?
it.
South Florida Water Management District,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And-
Lee County.
Lee County, okay.
Well, we might want to have the district as the lead, but also tie in, if we're going to have a recommendation on creating a Bonita or just a DRGR working group, to have all of those entities be part of that discussion. It would include city, county, all of those folks.
And I would suggest in your proposal for next time that working group would be kind of paying
Plug into
attention
all
to
this
and kind of spearheading all these issues, not just, I mean, I don't think if we start pointing out which issues that working group should be involved in, if we miss
Right.
6 or 8 of them, that's not our intention to exclude them.
Maybe clarify, or maybe my view is that, okay, that is a good idea for if we want to hold back or try to store water or retain water longer for the dry season. It seems to me, though, that the Kiel Canal also is an opportunity for the wet season. If, again, we talked about before this, the crew lands were purchased, if we could store more water, and I think what Andy Tilton was saying was that, you know, and I've said this before, 1 inch over 15,000 acres is a lot of storage. It may or may not, you know, somebody, it could be Kevin or somebody like that, would have to say how much is too much for the natural vegetation. But it seems to me that we shouldn't limit it to just the dry season storage, that's all of it. And it may get more complicated to say that it would be for multiple things, but I think it could do both. Is what
I agree, and I'm not even sure it's a good idea, but I just want to hear about it, you know.
Okay. It just
it
seems
might
to me
be
we shouldn't
not
limit
be
it
a
to
good
dry
idea.
season, though.
I just think it's an intriguing thought, and it might be a good idea. So we'll find
All right,
out.
so where are we on that one? Because yours references dry season, so do we want to eliminate the reference to dry season? Do we want to?
I think we can eliminate dry season and just let them, I just want to hear about I want to hear some discussion about it, so
I
just
mean, I
whatever it
think
takes.
to Nicole's point, this South Florida Water Management District's not going to want to hear that we're going to try to store more water in the wet season. So, I mean,
Limited to the canal, and that's why I was thinking if, for
no,
wet season,
Yeah, it would
It
go
needs
out,
to be
yes, it would go outside the
dispersed.
canal, sure.
Well, I'm guessing that they have their own ideas of what they want the Kiel Canal to do, so that's just a point, but I mean,
yeah,
and we
and
got-
I'd imagine a lot of this is dependent on all the restoration projects that they're doing east of the weir. So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can say this all we want, but until they get those done, there's
Do you
probably
have
not
the
much more
wording?
they're going to do.
Well, the wording I have is look into the possibility of utilizing the Kiel Canal for additional water storage during the dry season. Project to be coordinated by the Water Management District and Lee County.
Fine with me.
so do we want to keep dry season in there or remove it so that it,
I have just a silly, maybe not a silly view, but it seems like we're telling the council to do our work. It seems they should be directing us to look into, rather than us asking them to look into.
We don't exist in a month, so.
they
a month
have
and a
to
half.
ask, it's actually us recommending that the city ask water management to look into it.
Right.
I mean, it's
Because it-
not in the city, so.
How about
Right.
instead of look into, just encourage using.
Water management
right,
has the
Encourage
control.
using the property, the Kiel Canal east of the weir for additional water storage in the dry
I'm not
season
even
to
sure
the
I
extent
want
that's
to
feasible.
encourage it. I'm trying to get a discussion going, you know.
Okay. Well,
I would like
if we
to
can't support
investigate-
this, we shouldn't.
No,
go forward
I
with it.
want to support it. I want to investigate the possibility of.
But maybe it
That's
doesn't
what I-
belong on the on the
I'd
recommendation.
like to investigate the possibility
Why
of.
don't you use those
Okay.
words?
That's what
Encourage
those-
South Florida Water Management to investigate, and then,
That's fine with me,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Better. Encourage the
Okay,
water
let's
management
let's
to investigate.
let's go
the
ahead and finish this so we can at
Okay,
least vote on
so-
it.
So now it would be encourage the South Florida Water Management District to investigate the possibility of.
Perfect.
Okay, encourage the South Florida Water Management District to investigate the possibility of utilizing the Kiel Canal for additional water storage during the dry season or not?
Just storage.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a
Just
consensus,
period
guys.
is fine with me,
Okay.
because you can't store any more in it during the wet season unless you
All right.
increase the size of the banks, so. you
Okay.
know,
So is
That's
there a consensus on
Period.
that, or is there?
We have to
That
vote.
sounds good. So does everybody understood the,
Yeah.
okay, let's vote on that one. All those in favor of submitting that one?
I'm going to say also, this is, since this wording is different than what I declared a conflict on, I'm voting.
Please, yep. Okay, so unanimous as revised.
Okay,
Thank you.
2 more underwater quantity.
Yay. All right, number 15, rehydrating already existing publicly owned or willing agency-owned open lands.
It seems like we've covered this with both the Pine Lake and the Jefferson. I don't know if we've specifically talked about Hidden Cypress, but if it's not that, well, then this is probably duplicative.
Yeah, I tend to agree that this is duplicative. I mean, we can,
Yeah,
But
Right.
if we are encouraging the city to acquire more private land within the DRGR, then this would preemptively encourage them, right? We're encouraging them to acquire more public land when available.
I don't read it that way.
yeah, I don't think I read it that way
Okay.
either. You're talking
Oh,
about,
because it says already existing. Okay.
maybe what you want to do is add the wording in there that allows for that to be done to any future land that's acquired.
So if you took out already existing and just said rehydrating publicly owned or willing agency-owned open land,
That would also do it.
then it would include that land which is already owned and future.
the water quantity item number 3 that we talked about last time was any large publicly owned parcels within or adjacent to the city should be included in discussions with applicable agencies for inclusion in a water enhancement plan to allow for historic surface water flow reconnection consistent with an analysis to demonstrate that such connectivity would not have detrimental impacts on the hydro period of such parcel. Probably a bit of a run-on, but, so, I mean, I don't know if we need to,
So this is a duplicate.
I think
and
it's
we could strike
duplicate.
it.
I think so.
And we
Okay.
have Hidden Cypress referenced.
Right.
in
Right, we've
number 2,
specifically
so-
talked about the ones that are important.
Yeah.
All right.
So, everybody okay striking that one? Yes. Number 16, articulate a higher prioritization of all stormwater quantity projects identified in the Stormwater Master Plan update relative to the DRGR.
Comment.
Please?
Well, the stormwater management plan that we have, that master plan, really does not deal with major events, and it really needs to be, that's one of the things I've recommended. We don't have to deal with it now, but that plan needs to be updated and projects delineated in and around the DRGR in particular, but any other place in the city that would deal with the more major events, 25 years and larger. And so I just want to point that out. I have no problem with it, except that you're prioritizing projects that were not necessarily designed for the bigger storms. They might be a big help and they might not.
Yeah, I think that it seemed to hit just the hot spots on that study, so there could be an update that would be broader, I
Yeah.
expect.
That's
Excuse me, Fred, I don't know. Right now, there's like 16 projects that are identified by the South Florida Water Management Plan, Volume 2, update, whatever. And they've already funded 2 or 3 of them already that are in the budget. I think what we need to do is to recommend the other ones that aren't funded to be funded.
Well, we talk about that in the water quality portion. This is water quantity.
All right?
So do we want to articulate for water quantity purposes a higher prioritization of stormwater projects in the DRGR?
A higher prioritization of what?
Well, I mean, I think what we're doing here is trying to tell staff how to do their job, because they already have a prioritization process for the projects. So what we're trying to do is say, well, if it's in the DRGR, it's more important than ones that aren't in the DRGR. And I don't know if that's really appropriate.
No, my point is that it's more important that the projects be delineated and defined that would really take care of the bigger events, which, as Dennis has correctly said, these are more hot spot projects as opposed to so it's some of both. I mean, I think that 2010 study does need to be updated to take care of the bigger events. And as far as reprioritizing those projects, the 16, there aren't that many that are in the
It's 3.
DRGR, as I recall.
Yeah,
There's
there
3 in
were
the
3 of the
DRGR.
16, and
Yeah.
the total of those was about $1 million.
Right. And they're low on the priority list. Their numbers 11, 13, and 15 out of 16.
I'm sorry, that was the, no, I'm sorry, that was the water quality one.
That's quality, yeah, that's quality. Sorry, I was jumping ahead as well. So I'd propose we strike this one.
Ah, good.
That would be better.
Everybody
than
okay
leaving
striking
it
this?
Pick it up in the quality area.
Right.
All right.
So, okay, we're striking 16. All right, moving.
By the way, on that 2010 that Fred mentioned, the 3, there were 3 in the, well, actually 2 in the DRGR area, and both of those, they recommended no CIP projects for it because they thought they'd already been taken care of with other means or other work that was already done. So there really was no specific DRGR flood area projects in that 2010 study. Yeah.
All right. So moving on to water quality. Number 1, design and implement water quality projects for the Pine Lake Preserve and Hidden Cypress Preserve, incorporating appropriate rehydration of the wet areas and providing filter marsh components for each.
Hang on. I got it. Sorry.
My comment on this one was, well, on the third line, wet areas, I think wetlands would be
Right.
the
Well, that's-
proper terminology. And then to make sure that the rehydration is done with projects consistent with the restoration of the ecological integrity.
Yeah.
So that we're not adding water in a system that really shouldn't have as much water as we're adding.
Right. Yeah, and I think you captured my if feasible.
Are these 2 projects though, rather
Can-
than 1?
Well, they are, but we were proposing, suggesting both.
Well, it seems to me that we should have one recommendation for the Pine Lake and 1 recommendation for the Hidden Cypress. I mean,
Well, can I just offer something?
Please, John.
Water quantity, number 2,
Right.
that you agreed to last time, seems to track this one pretty closely, and I'm wondering if you might just want to tweak that language so that it's both water quantity and water quality, or in the alternative, separate them out as one water quantity, one water quality. But water quantity number 2 reads as follows: immediately support and fast-track projects which create additional water storage in the Crew Lands, Pine Lake Preserve, and Hidden Cypress Preserve through projects consistent with restoring the ecological integrity of those wetland systems. So again, that seems to track pretty closely what you're saying on the water quality side. Obviously, you could just, do
Well,
one separate, one for water quantity, one for water quality, or consider just tweaking the first language. Up to you guys. I mean,
Right, I mean, we can say which create additional water storage and provide water quality benefits in the Crew Lands.
Do you think that the future, I'm just asking, do you think that in future this will be looked at as separate issues?
Well, I think
And
we'd
so
list
we
them
could
as
repeat
separate.
it
I think
on-
we would list them as one is water quantity and one is water quality.
So then we could take pretty much the exact same language, but put it also under this, because it does both. It improves water quantity and quality. So
Right.
that way, when they're referencing water quality, they'd see it, they wouldn't have to look back to the water quantity one, and then, I mean, it'd just be easier if it was right there for them.
Well, we put it in both, and I think we've told City Council that some recommendations will be duplicative because they have more than
Okay.
one.
Right.
They're applicable in more than one category.
So then is that wording fine? I don't have any trouble with that wording, it seems to
So
cover.
just add the water quality.
Again, it would be immediately support and fast-track projects which create additional water storage, and we'd add some language about water quality improvements in the Crew Lands, Pine Lake Preserve, and Hidden Cypress Preserve through projects consistent with restoring the ecological integrity of those wetland systems. Policy effort should be coordinated by the Water Management District through the DRGR, Bonita DRGR Working Group, and targeted for implementation within 3 months. So we would tweak that to make a reference to water quality and include it in both the water quantity and water quality package. Sound good?
I'm good with that.
That sounds good. So what language do we want to add about water quality? Which create additional water storage and implement water quality projects in the Crew Lands, the Pine Lake Preserve, and Hidden Cypress Preserve?
Or we could just say, which create additional water storage and water quality improvements.
That's fine too.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, everybody get that?
Very good.
Yes, all right, so we're amending water quantity item number 2 and also adopting that as water quality item number 1.
Gotcha.
Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous. Number 2, here's implement the 3 water quality projects identified within the Bonita DRGR in the 2011 Bonita Springs Stormwater Master Plan Phase 2. And this is, yeah,
Well, right now, 3 of them are funded.
well, 3 of the projects, 3 of the 16 projects, not necessarily these
Right,
3.
Right, but of there's 8 recommended, and of those 3 are funded or in the budget. So I think we need to identify the other 5 and call them out for support.
Well, and I don't think, I think the intention is to kind of roll down the priority list, and these 3 projects, the 3 within the DRGR, were low on the priority list. Their numbers 11, 13, and 15 as far as ranking. And they're expensive. That's almost $1 million for those 3 projects.
We
So
got money in the budget.
What's that?
As far as I read the budget, we have money for it.
For those specific 3?
Yeah, well, yeah. We got Spring Creek restoration, Abernathy Falls, and we got a flowways restoration in there too.
Yeah, I don't think these are specifically funded items. I think what you'd be doing if we say implement these 3 water quality projects, it would take the place of $1 million of other water quality projects that probably are more effective.
I don't think the 3 you mentioned are these 3 that, which were,
Well, number 1 priority was Lake Creek bypass.
Right,
Number 2 priority was Terry Street at Lakener Creek.
correct.
And then the next one is Fells Avenue, which is funded. And then the other Murat Circle at the Imperial River is number 4.
yeah, none of those are in the DRGR, though. The ones that are in the DRGR dropped were not part of the 8 that were funded.
Right, the 3 in the DRGR were priority ranked number 11, 13, and 15.
Right.
2 of the 3 don't remove, or got a 0 score for their
I
nitrogen.
guess I was missing the point
efficiency.
that had to be within the DRGR. I was sort of
Well,
looking at
that's-
a bigger space.
Well, that's what this says. Implement the 3 water quality projects identified within the Bonita DRGR.
All right.
So then are you recommending we strike,
I would strike this.
I'm sorry.
My suggestion would be to strike this.
I think we
Those are
should
already
strike
funded.
something that gives us zero feedback.
Where do you get zero? I see the T in removal right here.
No, on the priority, when they were ranked, as far as the prioritization,
Right. I
two
know
of them got 0 points out of
Oh,
20.
point system, but
Sorry,
not
yeah.
nitrogen reduction, because that
Correct.
shows
Oh.
up over
Correct,
here. Yeah,
points,
yeah.
right. Yeah, it was, they got, yeah, they were fairly low on the,
So why are we deleting these projects again?
But why are they low on the priority list? Just because other people,
no, if you remember, city staff has a ranking process. They rank based on land availability, site located in a watershed, nitrogen removal efficiency, cost efficiency, existing land use, and then public interest.
So I think what Scott's trying to say is that staff has already identified 3 projects that we have funding for that would get more bang for our buck. If you make this recommendation,
Right.
you're basically saying take money away from those projects and fund 3 that are in the DRGR, but which might get you less bang for your buck. I think that's the.
I think that's
the
correct.
point.
Well, I'm okay if you want to delete them, but I think that, in my view, it wouldn't be taking money away from another project. You know, you just have to, it wouldn't be taking money away from one project for the sake of these. It would be basically adding these projects. you
Well,
know.
but, so what you're suggesting
I
is,
mean, you don't have a static, it isn't static, I'm just saying you'd have to increase the numbers, the dollars spent for, on a lot of this stuff. The city's gonna have to increase the dollars spent for water
That would
projects.
probably need to be part of your recommendation then, is that they find
No.
additional funding for that, I think.
are we proposing that we elevate properties or projects within the DRGR to a higher ranking? Because, I mean, that would,
I think the city should do them all if that was what the recommendations
Yeah,
were.
they
It's
should-
just that they
it-
funded half of the ones that were recommended.
Get their plan.
Because that's all we're gonna spend.
right, so it's not prioritizing,
They were
it's just.
prioritized. No, they were prioritized, but I'm
Right.
just saying that.
Right, but I
doesn't-
say it's not taking another one out, it's in addition, funding should be found to complete these. I mean, why
But-
should
but-
they sit on the cutting room floor?
the question is, are we focusing just on the DRGR? Those 3 items that are in the DRGR? Because if we're
Yeah.
saying do those first, I think you're reprioritizing these
What
projects.
if we just say do them as well?
What we could do.
Well, they're already there.
Well, I would prioritize it, saying two swipes. You know, one swipe of the highest priority are those within the DRGR, and the second tier are the following projects.
So we're recommending they get more money, is basically what we're.
Recommend they be funded. They probably money is available already. When I look at the budget, you know, I got $3 million in one spot, and I got another
The language.
elsewhere.
The language right now on water quality 2 reads, implement the 3 water quality projects identified within the Bonita GRGR, blah, 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 blah. Is what I'm hearing, I'm trying to see if there's a consensus here, would it be to add language before that starts that says something along the lines of, in addition to those projects already funded, then implement 3. So you're kind of saying, don't change what you've already got in terms of funded projects, but in addition to that, this. Is that what,
Well,
is that what the consensus is?
Just, maybe I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but number 7 is articulate a higher prioritization of all stormwater quality projects identified in the Stormwater Master Plan
Right,
Update Phase 2. So and I don't know how anyway, we'll get to that one. So, I mean, we're already talking about somehow modifying the way staff looks at these things.
Well, that one is a duplicate of, yeah.
Well,
that's
sort
where
of,
my
I mean,
No, I think what John is proposing is not bad. We're not saying don't do the ones you've got funded, but first of all, a lot of things have happened. City council may have changed its priorities some since 2010, which if they change their priorities, that tends to change staff priorities, or it should. Therefore, I think what John is saying, in addition to what's being funded, aggressively pursue getting these 3 funded in the DRGR. Doesn't mean don't fund the others.
But
Do 'em
that
all,
is
like
number
Jen
7,
said.
right?
but I guess my problem with that is we're saying elevate these projects, the 3 that are in the DRGR, elevate them to a higher priority than other projects that are better suited to the job. So a higher cost effectiveness.
But that prioritization was done in 2010. One of the factors was public interest. So if they got a 0, that means that they must have assumed that the people out in the DRGR and in the East Bonita didn't have any interest in.
Actually, 2 of the 3 got a 5 out of 10. So public interest, 2 out of the 3 got some points. So, but that, and even still, they're as low as they are.
Yeah.
I can't support trying to change the way the staff has articulated these just because the project's in the DRGR. I can support it differently if it's,
Well, why don't you word it a little differently? We vote on, we don't have to be unanimous on everything we do.
But isn't that 7? Didn't you
Yeah,
just say?
that's- yeah,
When I
that's-
read
that's really my
7,
number
that's
7.
exact, it's already worded. So this is almost a duplicate of 7.
well, this is not, though. Number 2 is I implement the 3 water quality projects in the DRGR.
Right, but if we
period.
word it, if we reword it to be more general, then it becomes a duplicate of number 7.
Right, if we articulate a higher prioritization based on a nitrogen removal, if that's going to be our priority, well, then 2 of these projects received a 10 out of 20 points, and they would bump ahead of probably 6 or 8 other projects. If nitrogen removal is our
But
big
I
priority.
understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that if we strike this one, it's covered in number 7.
Or
Or
vice
if we
versa.
change the wording to
Right.
make it more general, it's still covered in number 7.
Or we can strike number 7.
You know, it'd be better to
Either
strike
way.
number 7.
What am I hearing? I'm
I think the wording John had is, I like the wording because it doesn't say we're
Right.
putting a higher priority. It just says we need to spend more money on the water quality projects that were already identified,
Right.
and that doesn't mean that, and also I think what I'd put in here is that do them within the next 5 years. It doesn't mean they gotta change their budget this year or next year to do it. I mean, so and I think what Fred is saying is we're raising the higher standard of how much you spend for water projects, that's all.
okay, and I'd support that. I have no problem with.
Yeah.
What I don't want to do is start
No, I.
reallocating these projects based
Yeah.
on their location as opposed to
We
their
don't have enough
effectiveness.
information to
Right.
do it. I mean,
Can I make
I think we
one
got a ton of
minor
information.
squeak word?
Please?
Instead of already funded, currently funded, so that if you add John's language, it would start, in addition to the projects currently funded, comma, then the language you have, and then after phase 2, within the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's.
Sure.
That's good.
Can we go ahead and read that?
I'll read the whole sentence.
Please.
In addition to the projects currently funded, comma, implement the 3 water quality projects identified within the Bonita Springs DRGR in the 2011 Bonita Springs Stormwater Master Plan Phase 2, comma, within the next 5 years.
And I still think people are going to read that thinking that we want you to do the ones for this current year and then the DRGR projects. And I can't support that.
Okay, and you did say within the next 5 years, right?
Yes. And that would be
I
the
mean-
3, I presume there's 3 water quality projects that are clearly identified within the boundaries of the DRGR.
Yes.
So if that's the case, within the next 5 years, or you could put with by
Can't we just
2020.
say, put into effect get the 16 projects all done in the next 5 years? I mean, is that your intention?
Some are never feasible, though. I mean,
Well, that-
when you get these plans.
Right, but
Our own city's master
Somebody's-
plan.
I don't.
We did, somebody did the work for the city, and came up with these priorities.
Right, but my fear is that we're changing those priorities solely based on location. If you say, in addition to the projects that are currently funded, get these 3 done because they're in the DRGR, you're elevating them to a higher priority than what
Inconsistent
really
with
they
the
should be.
priority- Original priority.
Correct. And I don't think that's a wise use of cities' resources.
My concern is that it's a homegrown master plan. We should support it.
Yeah, I mean,
Find a way to
I
do
think
it.
you could say that about every recommendation then. I mean, we're elevating the DRGR in of itself by recommending rehydration of the wetland areas, of the Kiel Canal, I mean, it is elevated. That's why we're here.
Right, but if your job is if we're talking about water quality, and your job is really to remove the nitrogen, because that's the pollutant that's been identified, then your priority should be nitrogen removal. 2 of these DRGR projects received 0 out of 20 for nitrogen removal.
No, you've got, one of them is
No, on
336
on the
pounds
score.
per year. That's higher, that's the second highest of the whole, well, third highest of the whole group, maybe fourth. So it's not low at all. It isn't that.
No,
part, but
on this ranking category.
I know,
for
but
nitrogen
it-
removal efficiency.
I'm just saying, all of them are, yeah, all of them are viable, it's just they didn't receive as high a ranking. And I'm not debating that, I mean, they ranked them probably the way that was appropriate. All I'm
Right.
saying is we're elevating the importance of the DRGR projects, whether it's quantity, quality, or recharge. I mean, that's kind of what we're doing.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we've been doing.
And the city could receive input from their staff that they could then make a decision not to take this recommendation,
Well, of course.
ultimately too, so.
But
And even if the city council takes the recommendation, they agree with the recommendation, every year at budget time, they figure out what are their priorities. You know, this just, as Mr. Gilkey says, it prioritizes these three based on a geopolitical, based on DRGR concerns, rather than, you know, the science or the other rankings, but it does allow them to be put into a special consideration pool.
And it also could maybe elevate it to where grant funding could be applied for that wouldn't have otherwise been applied for to try to get these done. So I think calling these out is appropriate. I agree with Dennis. We're kind of here to put forward all of these DRGR issues. So I don't, as long as we're not taking funding from 3 projects that are currently funded, I think that identifying these and highlighting them is appropriate.
okay.
And I just want to
So-
point out that when I looked at the stormwater master plan quite a while ago, and I don't know which, I apologize, I don't know which plan or which are the projects. I know there were some that were extraterritorial to the city of Bonita Springs boundaries. So that would be problematic in and of themselves. So I don't know if those are still part of the 3
I don't think so.
identified, or maybe that was taken out of the identified
One says Lee
group.
County.
So, there was, I'm just telling you, so some may have other problems, or the projects may have problems.
Yeah, based on land ownership, though, I mean,
Right, not
not,
based
not,
on science,
not on
based
location.
on, right.
Land ownership.
Okay,
The
so-
way I view this is we have 8 projects that are recommended by in the master plan. 3 of them are funded. We should do something to assist the priority of the other ones that aren't funded yet,
Nice.
regardless of where it's inside or outside the DRGR.
That, I agree with you. But that's not what's being proposed, so.
Yeah, if I can try to get this back to where we can maybe get to a vote on it, the language that's being proposed is, in addition to the water, I guess I want to say, in addition to the water quantity and quality projects currently funded, implement the 3 water quality projects identified in the Bonita DRGR and the 2011 Bonita Springs Stormwater Master Plan Phase 2. These projects should be targeted for the completion within the next 5 years.
And I think Audrey changed already to currently.
Correct.
Okay.
Other than that, you've got it.
Okay, currently funded. Okay. Okay, so
Well,
is
you
there
could
consensus?
also add to that to speak to your concern, which is that the city should really, as aggressively as possible, pursue all the water quality projects that have been not funded
Well,
to date.
I
which
mean, we can,
Gets to what Dennis is saying, they ought to all be funded.
I mean, I agree they should all be funded, but I think what's on the table is to elevate the DRGR projects.
Yeah.
So,
And that's
All right,
why
I think
I'm
we-
trying to see if
right.
there's a consensus
I,
on
I think we need to,
that
I
recommendation.
think we need to vote on this one. So we can keep things moving.
Because we're really not getting that far. if we
Right.
Keep this up, so,
Okay.
sorry.
Go ahead. Read it one more time.
Okay.
We're going to vote on this.
In addition to the water quantity and quality projects currently funded, implement the 3 water quality projects identified within the Bonita DRGR and the 2011 Bonita Springs Stormwater Master Plan Phase 2. These projects should be targeted for completion within the next 5 years. Period.
We can include the cost because it's in here.
No, it's an estimate from 3 years ago,
Right,
but yeah,
but-
whatever.
I mean, a cost of
Well,
approximately $1 million.
approximately $1 million, yeah.
So we should include the cost, I think, then, if
Well,
we have
it's
the cost.
from the, right, I mean, it's a while back, but we're using approximately.
I could just add a reference at cost as estimated in the study.
That's fine.
I mean, so there's
That's
some
fine.
reference that something had been already targeted.
Fine.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor?
Reluctantly.
And
And
I
a
am
six-
opposed.
6-1.
All right, number 3. Establish new best management practices and low-impact development standards by local city ordinance. My comment is BMPs and LIDs aren't new, so I just put applicable instead of new. So establish applicable best management practices and low-impact development. And then I just put parenthetically, including encouraging the use of pervious surfaces, discouraging or limiting use of fertilizers, encouraging plant buffers along waterfronts.
I thought we were encouraging new, higher,
We are, but they're not really new. They're just applicable.
okay,
I mean, BMPs and LIDs have been around a long time.
okay,
They might be new to the city, but
okay.
I was just saying the ones that are applicable.
I think we need to at least modify the thing about low-impact development if city council approves low-impact development. Because it's kind of like another thing that was in one of the parking lot items, don't change the zoning and the land use south of Terry. So if you approve that, that implies you're saying change it north of Terry. So I think we should at least not take for granted what they're going to do and say, should they adopt further, increased development intensity, because otherwise you're at 1 house per 10 acres.
Right, but this doesn't deal with intensity or anything. It's just talking about when you develop a property, use best management practices, low-impact development.
What do you define as low-impact development?
It could talk about how much pervious surface and impervious surface you have on your site, how much retention area you have, how much parking you're permitted.
So we're not,
sorts of stuff.
we're not advocating any change in density or intensity.
I don't think
of
so.
use.
I don't read that into this.
Okay.
I don't know
Just
that we
because
need-
we use the D word.
Well, you could call it low-impact design instead of development if you want. I mean,
That-
and some
good, that's a
some
good-
engineers do
good
that now.
suggestion.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that?
The other thing, as far as the specifics, I know we've talked about limiting pervious surfaces or pervious pavement. We've
Right.
talked about, that we already have a fertilizer ordinance, and then, the plant buffers versus water. I think we probably need to leave that to the experts.
That's fine,
Because
yeah.
there's plenty of other ones that could be
Right.
more effective than what you even have listed here as a for instance, so.
Okay.
On
I'm
the
okay
other
getting rid of
hand,
that.
just a suggestion, if you put including but not limited to, it kind of gives the council an idea of what you're talking about. To use those examples, I mean,
Well, we can give a list of 20 of them if you want, because, there's
Yeah.
quite a few,
Well,
generally, that,
understood.
even like what Eric Livingston, there's a list of things that, some of which are more effective than others, but
just
we can do that if you think
Right.
that's,
Right. And did you emailed a link to, was it you or Fred that emailed a link to BMP's?
there was some recommended by Rawl, there's some in the DEP, actually, the DEP there's BMPs already in the BMAP now. And then in the draft stormwater rule, there was some there, the one that wasn't adopted that Eric Livingston did. So there's a lot of sources there. It's just, I don't know where you start and stop.
Right, no, it's a
And
good
also
point.
the federal EPA site has BMPs too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be tough to start a list without making it super all-inclusive.
Do you think that the city council would need that kind of some examples to?
my suggestion is just, it could be helpful for somebody reading this and not understanding what you're referring to by saying including but not limited to, but then
Mr.
again,
Chair, why
you
don't
can
we
take it out.
adopt it and then we can add this other stuff in?
That's fine, too.
you know?
Right. So we want to use the word new or applicable?
Applicable.
Okay. All right, so we're going to vote on establish applicable best management practice and low-impact design standards by local city ordinance. This policy effort should be coordinated by Public Works Department and outside consultant and should be targeted for completion within the next 12 months at a cost of approximately $25,000.
At the most, yeah.
And I wouldn't include
I don't know.
partially funded.
It's just, that was my number, just throwing something out there, but
Sure.
it might be 50, but it's not I don't think it's 150.
Right.
No.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's a good number, and 12 months is a good time frame, and
What was the number? I'm sorry.
$25,000.
12 months.
And I think it should be not just Public Works, but probably environmental staff.
Well,
and-
maybe coordinated by city staff.
Okay.
Maybe that makes more sense to just say coordinated by city staff.
Good.
Okay. So establish applicable best management practice and low-impact design standards by local city ordinance. This policy efforts shall be coordinated by city staff and outside consultants and should be targeted for completion within the next 12 months at a cost of approximately $25,000. All those in favor? Unanimous. Beauty. Number 4, require that all new projects provide a calculation of the nitrogen reduction to be achieved for a particular project prepared by a qualified professional and submitted for to the city for review.
I think that we probably need to have some sort of percentage reduction as part of our recommendation. I mean, this just requires that they provide the calculation. It might be
0.
great, it might be 0. One of the things that, when the state was going through their stormwater rule process,
Look at number 5, by the way. Sorry. Look at the next one. That might do.
yeah, I mean, that's getting to on the whole, but this is dealing project-specific. So we can either address it here or number 5, but I'd recommend that we look at the concept of developers treating at least 80% of their own pollution over the natural baseline of total nitrogen, regardless of what the land use is, so that we know that we're getting an 80% reduction in the total nitrogen from that
From what
project.
baseline?
Yeah,
How
'cause
do you
so
derive a
if somebody takes an
baseline?
agricultural property and converts it to single family, there's two significantly different baselines. Which one would you use?
Well, there are, but essentially having this over the natural-based total nitrogen, so an 80% reduction over what is naturally occurring, regardless of the previous land use.
Nicole, I think what you're probably relating to is the 80 or 85% that was in the draft stormwater rule? Okay. And I think that is a little confusing from the standpoint of the BMAP, which was the 25% or 24.5% reduction that we need to get in the Imperial Basin. So I'm afraid those percentage reductions could be a little confusing. So, you know, I understand where you're going with it, but I'm not sure that we should reference the, get the two confused, that's all I'm saying.
But this is looking project-specific. The BMAP is saying that as a city, the city needs to reduce by 26.5%. This is looking at for each individual new project, what are they going to do for their pollutant load reduction?
Well, the next one talks about new development being at 29% reduction, so 10% above the 26.5.
But I think what Nicole's referring to, though, and I guess I would need to have some engineer clarify the difference, because I think what your load reduction is based on the development condition load reduction, the BMPs that you would apply to get that 80% reduction from I'm just not sure we're apples and apples on those percentages, that's all. And
Oh, no,
if we can,
yeah, no, I understand we're not, but I guess what we're trying to do is create two different things. One is a reporting requirement, one is a reduction requirement. And I think what Nicole's saying is we should combine them. Yes, a reporting and reduction
I
requirement.
don't see the point of reporting if there's no recommended standard set. So, yeah, maybe just delete this one and work on it through number 5.
Because 5 would still have some reporting requirement element in it, plus a reduction element.
Right.
I mean, right.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
You okay with that?
Okay, let's strike 4.
Striking 4.
All right, this one is currently worded as implement and codify the Baracco report recommendations to require new development to improve the water quality in the DRGR by over 10% over the required, and I didn't write this, so I'm just reading it. By over 10% over the required 26.5% reduction required in the BMAP for a 29% reduction over existing conditions.
One problem I have, I think the language is good, but I think somehow we need to be a little more specific about how do you establish where they're taking their sample. There's got to be some verification of what the contamination level is at the beginning and what time of the year it's done at, and then a ability to go out and take samples at the same place at the same time of the year and see how the improvement has been. And I think that we should also encourage the city to put some kind of a requirement if they don't make what they said they would do, or at least the 10% over the 26.5%, that then that developer's got to do whatever it takes to fix it.
I guess I'm also wondering, you're making it more stringent in the DRGR over the already more stringent 26.5%.
I think probably one reason you can justify that, the DRGR is clearly gets a lot more water into it and discharges a lot more water than probably the rest of Bonita Spring. I mean, there's all the sheet flow, not only the rain, but the sheet flow is very unique. So the more water that comes in, the more it's going to bring whatever it's carrying and pollutants into the DRGR. And so that would be another reason to have the 10% over the recommended 26.5%.
But how do we determine, and I think first of all, we don't need to reference the Baracco report.
I
We
agree
can
with
just
that.
reference
No, I agree
whatever
with that.
percentage. But how do you tie a new development to ensuring that they do what we're asking them to do on a pollution problem that is DRGR wide? I'm not sure how you
You can't test an
hold
individual
them
project, right?
accountable and to understand that. And that's why I was thinking something along the lines of the, higher treatment standards for the on-site, because that's something that you can quantify on-site. Now, I don't know how that ties in with kind of these additional percentages going off-site. I guess I need some clarification from someone that has a better understanding of that, or how you could hold one property owner or one developer accountable for doing these pollutant load reductions
Well,
when it's on a DRGR-wide basis.
If you were to develop a DRGR, and I know Audrey can speak more eloquent than I, but I believe you can make an overlay of the whole area and put these special extra requirements that don't apply to the rest of the city in it, if city council so chose to
But
do that.
I understand that a lot of the pollutants are picked up as it goes through the city also. It's not just
Right.
this really singles out the DRGR in a way that I'm not feeling too comfortable right now.
Well, I think the specifics of the BMAP are what this applies to, and that's why the BMAP has certain parameters for nitrogen reduction that, in certain credits they gave the city for fertilizer ordinance and the Florida neighbors, yards neighborhood. So that's why I'm not sure if these percentages are consistent with the parameters of the draft stormwater rule that you were referencing. That's why I'm saying, I would need some expert to tell me how to word that too. What I think we were saying here was this would be based on the criteria that DEP measures the city on under the BMAP. And if they've said that you've achieved 3,000 pounds of nitrogen reduction, that same parameter or basis of calculation would be how it would apply to a site, I guess.
Could,
Fred?
well, I was just going to say, could this be tabled, and then maybe staff also, Nicole, through the Conservancy's got the ability to go to various experts, and maybe we can come back at the next meeting and have a better wording on either this one or the one we just struck.
And I don't mind, I think we go either way if we think we can still achieve the same thing, whether it's reference the B-map or referencing something that we would think would be kind of hard to reference the draft rule that wasn't adopted, but still, there's some technical basis for it. So-
Well, yeah, and I don't think we'd reference the draft rule, but just in creating these higher standards, I mean, I think we know we want higher standards out here, and I'm just trying to figure out the best way to get that and to quantify that for each individual project, and I'm just not sure how you could do that. So anyway, I can ask additional questions and get some additional information, and maybe staff can.
And I was gonna say, if not, we can ultimately just say, implement and codify higher standards.
Right.
And we can send it off to staff to determine what those higher standards are. I mean, if we
good.
express our intention to reduce nitrogen on a project by project basis, I think we'd have to define what a new development is. I mean, I don't think somebody building their home on their own 5-acre lot you would require them to hire some sort of engineer. I think that might be unfair, but
Some sort of table be a useful way of presenting this information? Some sort of table with the columns, and you can talk about if this, then...
for this,
Yeah.
I
guess I'm addressing my thoughts to Nicole, is whether a little table or something would help.
No, I'm not sure. I
don't-
think if we had something specific like new development had to treat at least 80% of their own pollution, or if I had a better understanding of how you would tie 10% over the required 26.5% as a Bonita DRGR-wide reduction to one specific project, I need more clarification
I'm just
on that.
brainstorming an idea
Yeah.
that might be a useful way of presenting the data. Maybe not, probably not.
all right. So I hear we're gonna table this. Is that what we wanna do? Table this till next time?
Yeah.
All right, number 6, adding to the inventory of open space designated for water storage by establishing filter marshes in the Lightner area, Pine Lake Preserve area, and Jefferson Flowway area.
I suppose.
And
I know I've heard this one
this one.
before.
And
Sure sounds
That was
familiar.
on quantity, though.
Yeah, we already decided we were gonna tweak water quantity number 2 to make references to water quality.
Yep.
So you may decide that this is a duplication
I
of
think
that.
it's a duplication. I think we can strike this.
But do you want it to appear under water quality as well as, and so,
You actually have water quality number 1.
Is
Right,
right,
okay.
the same
All
language
right.
is right.
all right.
We're okay with striking that one?
I think so.
Stop me if you've heard this one before. you know.
All right, number 7, articulate a higher prioritization of all stormwater quality projects identified in the Stormwater Master Plan Update Phase 2. I think we agreed to strike this one.
Yeah.
All right.
Stop me if you've heard this one before.
Oh, is that what you were saying that? I thought you were saying that for the last one. I'm sorry. All right, number 8, adding to the inventory of available open space to be used for water quality efforts by buying land currently zoned agricultural.
I think it's a good idea. I think we should not just restrict to agriculture. Any land that a willing seller is, willing to sell, I suppose.
What would you do with it?
I would just change it to,
No, I'm sorry, what would you do with the land? If we're encouraging the city to buy it, what are we doing?
we're probably going to either restore it or use it as it is to store water, because the land out there, most of it does hold water other than where something's been built on.
Is there a reason why we're interested in land zoned agriculture as opposed to used as agricultural land?
No, I'm saying I would either just say buy additional land or say agriculture and other approved land uses or whatever.
And the reason why I'm agreeing with Mr. Forbes is the fact that when I go into condemnation or eminent domain,
Yeah, and I
you
think,
don't look at how the land is zoned currently, it's what it's allowed under the comprehensive plan for valuation.
And
So if it's to save me a buck, it's not gonna do that.
But I don't think anybody's talking about eminent domain.
I understand, but
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
even if
it's willing
somebody
sellers
wants to
too.
voluntarily sell,
Right.
they're gonna price it, their appraiser's gonna price it as to what it could be zoned for, not
Right.
necessarily what it's existing zoned for.
there's a,
In
just,
zoning, we usually require when we purchase land to go to, when it,
Yeah,
prior to
just-
zoning.
just so you all know, there's under miscellaneous number 8, there's a purchase from willing sellers, any available currently undeveloped 10-acre parcels within the DRGR to be used for water storage capacity within the development rights, with the development rights of those properties available for transfer to other appropriate areas.
There are 5-acre parcels out there, too. I mean, they're
I'm just,
primarily 10,
I'm
but
just suggesting, because
there
we
are
talk
also
about
5.
add to the inventory of open space by buying land, and then under miscellaneous purchase.
Sounds like it might be
loans.
better stated under that one under miscellaneous that you can get
Mm-hmm.
to.
I mean, if
I
this
thi-
is
I
a
don't-
water quality project and you're talking about storage, that's a water
Well,
quantity issue, but,
Yeah, and
so I mean, I guess,
I've got a similar one in water quantity, but also if you buy land and it has any water on it all at different wet times of the year, it's going to give you water quantity, it's going to give you water quality, and it probably may even could affect some other things as well for the good, so.
I don't see the need for this.
unless it specifically says how it's going to affect quality, I don't either. Unless it's designated for reservoir, or designated for filter marsh, or designated for something, but just
I
to
mean, but
buy it.
Which we've already talked about as far as
Right.
large parcels, so I mean,
Right.
I think we've already covered this. I don't see the need for this one.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Well, but I'm open, so I'm,
What's the harm in leaving it in there? Because it's like some of the other things, it's redundant in several areas.
yeah, I think the harm is it's diluting the efficacy or the importance of all the other proposals we're making to city council.
Well,
I mean, I think we're gonna try to duplicate as much, or we're gonna try to eliminate as much duplication as possible. We've already got a provision in about buying large parcels. We also have a provision in miscellaneous that we'll get to about buying 10-acre parcels.
Maybe this could be something of a lease agreement for kind of the water harvesting. If someone that owned ag land was willing to, for a price, agree to store water on their agricultural land to kind of help with the whole water storage effort. It's a thought. We haven't really looked at anything less than fee simple acquisition. I don't know if it's worth considering, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why, let's put it this way. If Collier County could get a walk-on in to buy 620 acres unanimously supported by city council, why is that not important for the DRGR land? Buying additional land from willing sellers.
I mean, I think we already have it in.
Yeah, I haven't
I
heard
think we
anybody
already have
say
it in
that it's
here.
not important. I think I've heard people say that you might have already covered that.
Oh, no, but my point is Pine Lake rehydration, the hidden cypress, some of these things are coming up couple times so far that we've approved. So what's wrong with approving this, acquiring additional land under different items, one of which would be water quality? That's all I'm saying. So,
Doesn't look like there's any harm. It's
Well,
maybe an overkill, but it doesn't hurt anything.
Okay, what is the water quality aspect of buying land currently zoned agricultural, though I guess we're
if there
deleting
is,
that
if
provision?
water is held on it, you could say that it's got to be land that already is wet in the rainy season. But if it's holding water in the rainy season, it is by de facto improving water quality because that water's not running immediately into the streams and the rivers and all that.
But it's not percolating if it's already holding water. If the land's saturated, then it's not filtering it.
If it sits there long enough, if it either evaporates or eventually soaks in the ground, it's going to improve your water quality.
I think we should just strike currently zoned agricultural and leave it in. Just strike those 3 words. Buying
Right,
land,
so
period.
adding to the inventory of available open space to be used for water quality efforts by buying land.
Yeah, that's what I.
From willing sellers, because you don't want
Well,
the
yeah.
eminent domain.
All right, are we doing anything with the miscellaneous number 8 item, which is to buy land from willing sellers? I mean, I guess we can get to that and strike it, but I think this is too vague and too, anyway. All right, So what do we have? And who's coordinating this project? Time frame, cost?
Well, your cost will probably be minimal because you're going to be going for funding sources. I know in the stuff I submitted, I gave you about 6 pages full of sources for funding water project, land acquisition, all kind of things, so. And you got issue 1 that may pass, which is another big, huge funding source. So that would be another one. I would put down, cost would be staff time pursuing grants and funding sources, and there may be, in some cases, some amount of matching money. You don't know.
Okay, so I've got adding to the inventory of available open space to be used for water quality efforts by buying land. This project would be coordinated by city staff. I don't have anything for targeted for completion at a cost to be limited to staff time pursuing grants. Is that? I'm
That's
not-
fine,
Okay.
Good.
yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Let me just clarify.
Oh.
You said adding, when you just say add, if you're going to do that,
Add to.
Add to the inventory?
so you have the sentence out.
Okay.
Okay.
But if we have it limited to staff time for pursuing grants, that wouldn't, I don't think Amendment 1, then funding would qualify.
I'm just
So-
repeating what I.
No,
what
I know, I just wanted
Yeah,
to make
good
sure
point.
that everyone understood that that was very limited.
Suggest the word.
Limited to staff time pursuing funding sources.
Right,
And can we add in the willing seller,
right.
please?
That's a key point.
Add to the inventory of available open space to be used for water quality efforts by buying land from willing sellers. This project would be coordinated by city staff at a cost limited to staff time pursuing funding sources.
All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
5, 1, and 1. Abstain. Oh, that was number 8. Oops. Number 9, augmenting the current development standards to provide for higher criteria for new development relative to the reduction of total nitrogen levels.
And this also goes to the concept of having the 80% pollutant reduction, which we might want to table this one.
You want to table this one?
Discuss
Yeah.
it.
I'm fine with that.
I think it should be.
Would it also then be combined with the
Yeah.
old number 5?
Yes, so table 5 and 9 together. Number 10, encouraging by way of development standards the use of pervious surfaces wherever possible. I think we've discussed this
Sounds
with
familiar.
BMPs, yeah. We okay striking this one? Did I get strike, yes? Number 11, adding incentives to the current HOA educational efforts relative to pond maintenance and fertilizer use. I'm going to suggest we table this one because I think Fred had some stuff in his
Yeah.
that kind of goes along with it, and I had some stuff dealing with this as well. So if you're all okay with tabling this, because I think this is something we could all support, but I think to
Right.
incorporate our language would be good.
Yeah, I agree, but I'd like to emphasize that we should applaud the efforts of the city council or city staff for funding all the existing ads on TV about fertilizers. And I'd like to see us continue that throughout the season, not just for first month or two.
Yeah.
And then my comment there was that, this is a typical thing that is incorporated into low-impact design and BMP standards. So if those apply to new development, well, then that can be actually not just incentives, it could be required.
Right, and then penalties, and I think Fred and I both touched on penalties and reporting and
Right.
demucking of ponds, and we get into a bunch of stuff, so I think we'll table that. Number 12, prohibit the development of golf courses within the DRGR area. And
Mr. Chairman, I previously supported this idea, but I think now it's a bad idea.
Okay.
It's not our domain to talk about golf courses in or outside the DRGR. I think we'd be safer just being quiet on this area.
Well, they're currently not allowed anyway there, but, you know.
Hey, I agree with Mr.
I'm okay striking it, but,
Gallagher.
strike? All right.
Okay.
You impressed? We're making good time. Water supply / drinking water. All right, number 1, BSU and the city shall work in collaboration to update the wellfield protection ordinance to restrict / prohibit contaminants near the potable supply well fields.
Scott, let me jump
Please,
in there.
yep.
I think we sort of have the fox in the henhouse problem here with the issue. Mila wrote in here, I'd like to have some other independent, somebody come in and look at it and give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down or something that has no stake in the argument.
I don't,
But
is the Fox the city or the BSU? I mean, because it seems to me that if Lee County can do its own wellfield protection ordinance and Lee County is its own utility, are they the fox and the hen house? I mean, to me, that's just really redundant, and to say you don't trust the city to do their own, or the BSU, who's been in the business for 50 years to do this business.
Trust but verify.
Well, I mean, I think we've got concerned citizens like yourself that would be probably commenting on the ordinance to the extent it comes out. I mean, you've been tracking this probably closer than anybody else, so.
Not clear, but I've been.
I'll pat your back when you're up
urging
here.
for the publication of the wellfield protection.
Right.
It's still in staffing, right?
Right. Fred?
Well, I had two things. Let me take the one that'll be less controversial, probably, or maybe it'll be more. We have, beside the Bonita Springs wells that are used for providing potable water, we have a bunch of big capacity commercial wells that are used for irrigation and all that. And I'm wondering if we want to be even look at doing something about those wells, because if those wells get messed up, it still gets down into the aquifers and all that. So that was point one. I think it should be. I mean, when I'm talking about, I know the community that I'm from, we have 2 wells that each will pump well over 1 million gallons a day. So those are not what you call little wells that people have around. The only other idea that I have is I think there would be something useful if you could compare what Lee County's wellfield ordinance says versus our current one. And also I'd throw in, I'm assuming Collier County probably has one or another adjoining county. I think that would be, so if that could be presented, then that would give people like David Gallagher that's going to make public comment more ammunition to say he agrees or he doesn't agree or whatever.
Didn't you circulate the Collier County one recently? I thought, well, maybe not. I'm sorry.
I don't remember
No,
what I
back to
circulated, I'm sorry.
I thought I saw that
On,
fairly recently.
On
I
the comment
sent
that Fred
I
made,
sent a lot
Audrey,
of stuff out, so.
I know, I'm sorry.
the
Calling
wellfield
you out.
protection ordinance by nature, is it not for potable public supply?
Yeah.
So the irrigation
wouldn't-
supply, even though the district regulates volumes, and we're talking about contamination issues of
Drinking water.
drinking water.
Right, drinking water. We do have irrigation well regulations that Lee County put in place for Bonita Springs, I think 1990s, very early 90s. But the wellfield ordinance is strictly for our potable water supply issue.
Maybe the answer is, based on what you're saying, Audrey, that we could say that in addition to that, our Bonita Springs irrigation well ordinance be updated, or at least looked at for updating?
It probably doesn't need to be updated, because what happened was, Lee County in the Bonita Springs area prohibited certain irrigation wells as far as going deep. So that was done, I think, 1990. It was one of the first places where deeper irrigation wells were prohibited. So everybody's only been able to get a shallow well in this area. And I think they've plugged all the old wells.
See, I think our wells might be before that 1990, because our community started in construction in 88. It's just, there is a recognition that there
But
is.
for irrigation, wouldn't you be using your lakes?
No. We have wells that go down very deep, well, not as deep as probably.
The wells pump into the lakes, yeah.
Right.
The well field protection is for contaminants. The drawdown from irrigation wells and potable wells is regulated by the district, water management district, through consumptive use permits. This is not about consumptive use permits. This is about contamination of the potable well field, and that's what this ordinance is about.
Right. And Audrey, what's the status? Can you?
I just sent an email to Kim Hoskins as we speak. Right now, Bonita Springs Utilities has retained Johnson Engineering to assist in drafting it. I did meet with the professional geologist from Johnson along with BSU. They, in turn, have had additional meetings with Lee County government. My understanding is that they desire to mirror to keep everything updated. Remember, some of Bonita Springs Utilities is outside of the city of Bonita Springs, so Lee County also has a vested interest in the well fields for people of unincorporated Lee County. Some is Estero, some will still be unincorporated, depending on where the location is. So it's being worked on, but it's not been something that's been brought back to me for being able to schedule.
Excuse me, we've been talking about this for several months now.
Yes, we have.
Adds to my hairs on the back of my neck wanting to review
I've been
it.
talking about it since 2004. If you must,
Well, I mean, maybe we just say encourage the city to continue working in collaboration with BSU to update the wellfield protection ordinance to restrict, prohibit contaminants.
and it's not
near
as if
potable
there's not
supply well
a
fields.
well field
There-
ordinance.
right.
There is
We're
a
just
well field
updating it.
ordinance. It's just getting the correct science attributed to the well field ordinance.
Well, I still think it's important to have another party in there reviewing the ordinance, because it's very important.
I don't have anything to give you for you to review.
Well,
and
whenever
I-
it is published, then it would be reviewed.
Well, yes, of course.
Well, but then I think that's the whole public, making these things available to the public for comment. I don't think we need to have a outside review of every ordinance that comes through. I mean, I just
We
think that-
do. We have local planning agency, and we have public hearings where people who are interested are able to communicate.
But the city doesn't hire an outside independent party, which would not be independent once you hire them, so.
As far as a professional geologist, we have in the past. I mean, it's not something that it couldn't be done, but it's a matter where then the scientists and the scientists communicate directly, and usually it's no different than we hire architects and engineers. They
But
will-
are you asking for the city to hire an independent person to look at what the city's doing? I mean,
We do. I mean, we hire
Yeah.
professionals to assist us.
right, but you were looking at it as an oversight to make sure that the city's not contaminating our well water?
I'm not worried about the city doing it. I'm saying BSU has got different motivations than we do necessarily. And it just means on the safe side to have another independent party that when the ordinance is finished to look at it for a couple weeks or a month or whatever and say, yes, verily, this is great ordinance.
Do you think,
Or in contrast, this is a problem area.
well, I think what Audrey's saying is the county's probably going to be somewhat of a watchdog since they're interested in the overall service and Bonita Springs service goes outside. But if you're saying Bonita Springs Utilities would be interested in, has a conflict that they would want contamination somewhere, or how would that,
Saying they
how
would
would they?
want contamination. Their motivations are different than ours.
First of all, the issues with the wellfield ordinance, as I understand it, is what they call travel times, how long it takes for certain uses can produce certain issues. So you wouldn't necessarily want a gas station, which the petroleum, if it went down into the layer, it has, and there's different travel times for different pollutants. For example, I just know this, polychlorinated biphenyls are very slow unless they get into water, and then they go very fast. So, which are in transformers, as well as other substances. What the geologists are doing is they're looking at travel times based on the soil, based on what, for each area, and what the zones can be. And depending on the zone, sets what type of land uses can go near, if there's anything if you wanted to intensify. Now, I don't think anything is allowed to be really intensified out there, so it's not really an issue at this point, or ever. But, I mean, that's my understanding of what the purpose of the wellfield ordinance is.
Well, and actually, there is, part of BSU's plan is to drill wells along Imperial Parkway on a certain spacing going south to north. And so those wouldn't be in the DRGR, but you would still be dealing with the same thing, contamination.
I mean, it sounds like this train has already left the station.
Those are
I mean,
testing wells, aren't they?
Well, no, those are going to be deep wells to the
Yeah.
lower Hawthorne though anyway,
Right.
too. So not that it's still part of the welfare protection ordinance, but, so.
It's harder to get stuff down to the deeper, that's what you're saying.
Right, yeah.
But it still would be.
It's the shallow wells that are most
Right,
vulnerable.
Right.
And one of the things that I had recommended is to have kind of this wellfield risk management special treatment overlay, which I guess may already be in the ordinance already, kind of the zones, and if there were any prohibited uses within the certain zones, like no gas
Gas station,
stations
that's what I'm
within
saying. It's
50
already
feet.
like that.
Okay, and so that's already in there.
It's already
Yeah,
there,
I think
yeah.
you
That's been there
confuse people
since
by
the 80s.
mentioning an overlay. You'd probably
What-
confuse people or panic people.
Question
Okay, I'm willing to take that out.
Okay.
to
Fred?
maybe come up with something that would satisfy David and also might not be a bad idea. What I got out of those, the people that came in from Florida Gulf Coast University was that there was, some of them did have expertise in things like wells and all that. Maybe one of the things we could do that wouldn't cost any money would be to let them review the ordinance and give an independent report. That doesn't mean that they're right or wrong, but at least it's that other point that David's talking about. And it
I have-
wouldn't cost the city any money.
I
Corey?
tried to get some people from the university and from the University of Florida at the very beginning of all of our meetings. Nobody was willing to do anything for nothing. I mean, they all have jobs and the professors are busy and sometimes they can assign students to it, but otherwise it's not a free source constantly. I didn't find, and I went after a few people and
You have to call it an internship.
All right.
I'm joking.
It seems to me that with the, between the city's expertise, the BSUs and their consultants, and the Lee County, who, this is a modification basically of what already is kind of in place, has been in place, that the technical part is covered. I mean, if FGCU got involved, they may have they may say, okay, we're going to hire Tom Missimer. Well, you don't like him. So I'm just saying, I don't see where anybody could say there's a fox garden, a hen house with BSU and the city working together on you already got that. You have Lee County does their own water, has their own utility, and they didn't have anybody watchdogging them. At least you got the city and BSU kind of looking at each other. I mean, and the county on top of that. I just can't see where an outside source is going to provide any light other than just confusion and controversy.
All right, we're losing momentum, so let's keep going.
No.
Pardon?
Why don't you proceed?
That's fine. Let's, I'm fine if we want to just say, encourage the city to continue working with BSU to complete the update to the wellfield protection ordinance.
I think we ought to give them a target date.
That's fine. The policy should be coordinated, well, I think less than that. I mean,
Yeah.
but,
Well, in my view, what you, in addition to this, restricting contaminants, which is what I had put in there in my wording, was that, usually you have also your low-impact development or design criteria kind of going hand in hand with that as well, so
That
that,
comes up next. Do we want to
Yeah.
include that? Because that's
Oh,
on
is that
number
in there
2.
too?
Well, it's on number 2.
well,
We want to combine these two then?
I'm just saying that, because generally you do have water quality elements in that will, and raising water and water recharge elements in that do help your well field issues.
Maybe we should steal some of Nicole's language about keeping in mind
Well,
the
I think
historic levels,
I think they could be handled separately. This is very simple, it's number 1, and it's clear that we're encouraging them to update the well field ordinance and give them a year to do it, or 2, or whatever's feasible. And it's a clear-cut, doable project.
Yeah, maybe we just say within 2015. Just complete it within,
It's fine
during
with me.
2015.
Is there not already a date there, Audrey, is there not a target date set? I mean, I know it's been something that I thought it was going to be done this year. I think we all did probably.
I just asked status question on it. I know that the last time I got a status report, they were doing meetings and discussion. I don't know if deliverables, if the PG needs to get her deliverables out, or if has done it and they're now reviewing it.
I mean, is it unrealistic to say do it in 2015?
I don't know.
All right, well, we'll say 2015.
My part's easy. It's getting those darn numbers.
I understand.
I
yeah.
can't.
Well, we're just encouraging them to
Yeah.
complete it
So
in 2015.
I've got language that reads, encourage BSU and the city to continue to work in collaboration to update the wellfield protection ordinance to restrict prohibited contaminants near the potable supply well fields. This policy should be coordinated by the city staff and targeted for completion by the end of 2015.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Period.
All those in favor?
I'm abstaining.
You abstain, okay.
Oh.
Opposed, okay. 5, 1, and 1.
And the one was a
Dave.
Gilkey abstention and a Gallagher.
Dennis was,
Gallagher,
yep.
no.
Okay, just trying to let Karen know so she can.
Yep. I'll give you a copy of my spreadsheet when I'm done.
Okay.
I'm keeping track. All right. Number 2, the above studies, the BSU study, the BSU wellfield, I assume, is that what we're talking about, the wellfield protection ordinance? I don't know. I'm going to defer to whoever wrote this one. The above studies should also identify appropriate and financially feasible best management practices and low-impact development standards for the Bonita Springs DRGR area. The objective is to raise and better control groundwater levels during the dry season versus the current ditching system in the DRGR. This will facilitate groundwater recharge. I think we already
Look at-
covered this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you look at Nicole's language, you got a pretty good summary, but I'm not sure that it's something that you haven't already
Yeah, I think we've already
addressed.
the BMPs and LIDs.
Well, but have we specifically called out the desire to get those subsurface water levels back or as close as possible to the historic levels? I don't recall
It is mentioned.
that specifically mentioned anywhere else. Maybe it has
Well,
been.
but what,
Want that in there?
no, that's fine. I mean, I guess what is I guess I don't recall or it's not very clear as to what above studies it's talking about.
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
That was the
that
well
needs
field
to be
probably, but,
removed.
Okay.
because it was after the
The wellfield protection.
collaboration.
Yeah,
of
but
the
I don't know if that-
It doesn't say, I don't know.
Those two things might not
Ordinance.
make sense, but,
I didn't know what above studies it was referencing, so I just crossed that out and went my own direction with it. I don't know if that was the intended direction
Yeah,
of the drafter, but
I mean, I think we can, I'd just strike it. I mean, I think we've covered BMPs and LIDs before. We've talked about restoring natural flowways and wetlands and things of that nature. I mean, I think we can just strike
we have
this
on
one.
public lands, I'm not sure that we
how can
had
you-
anything specific as far as when development occurs, trying to design it so that on site, they're contributing to kind of the recharge of the groundwater, getting those subsurface levels to be elevated. I mean, I know we have on the public lands, but this would be more on other parcels.
I think we'd have an inverse condemnation issue doing that. Don't you think, Audrey? If we tell people on private lands they have to restore the natural water levels and.
Well, it's part of the BMPs and LIDs.
Yeah, no, I think
You
the permitting,
create-
you're gonna have to raise what's there now, because what's there now is ditch, so yeah, it will be raised. The issue is whether this goes, whether you want, it's just it is a component of a BMP, so whether you put it here and repeat that it's a component of BMP, or put it over in the other one, which was under water quality, it does both. I mean, it's gonna do both. It's gonna help
Right.
water quality and water, groundwater level.
Okay, but this relates to drinking water supply.
I know,
Water
the
supply,
groundwater
so-
level is gonna
Okay.
help with what she's talking about for any storage or recharge issues, if you will.
But does it belong, referencing the study, the well field protection ordinance?
I don't think, I crossed that out. I wasn't sure what studies. There were no studies listed above it.
Yeah,
That was the
that
top
probably
thing
just
on the
meant maybe
page, so
it's
I just
ordinance.
crossed that out. I didn't know what that was referencing. But I agree, no, it doesn't tie to the well field study specifically.
But maybe it's somewhere else, but what you're saying, Nicole, is raising the water levels helps drinking water, or we think it will, from the standpoint of providing additional head, for
Recharge, you know.
So whether it goes here or as a BMP or LID or, I'm okay with generally what you're saying there with it.
Is it that you really want to raise it, or do you want to just retain the existing groundwater levels on site?
No, they're,
Well, it might be lowering it. What Nicole's pointing is bringing it back to historic levels, but
And I'm not sure we want this will facilitate groundwater recharge in there.
and I guess, Nicole, is your point that the well field protection ordinance would include different BMPs in relation to the areas around?
I'm not referencing the well field protection ordinance.
Oh, no, was it your point here that the well field protection ordinance would include some sort of BMPs maybe different from the rest of the DRGR that would specifically?
No, I was
Okay.
not talking about that. I
Okay,
didn't,
well then-
I didn't draft the initial one,
No, I
so it
understand.
wasn't me that said the above studies. I didn't know what above studies it was referencing, so
Okay.
I crossed it out and just took the rest of it. So
Okay,
no.
I'm
it
just
didn't have a
asking.
connection.
Could
Okay.
it end just after historic levels, period? Instead of in order to counteract the hydrological impacts of agriculture? I mean, if it just ended at, to bring subsurface water levels back to or as close as possible to historic levels?
Yeah.
I mean, you could, but I don't think this belongs in drinking water
I don't
supply.
either, but.
Well, then, I mean, it can be moved to water quantity or water quality. I don't have a problem with that.
Right, and maybe we'll get back, because we talked about adding a whole bunch of example BMPs and LIDs, so we can
I don't really think it belongs
include
in
this,
drinking
but
water either.
I think I would strike this and just take your language and put it into the,
Well, yeah, I mean, transfer it to another category for
Right.
reconsideration.
right.
Oh, okay, I'm
You're lost.
lost.
We're striking it.
We are,
and we'll
well,
bring
we're
it-
No, no,
taking.
no, no, what
we're
I
not-
didn't hear striking it.
No, no,
heard we're
I said strike,
transferring it.
and that's not my intention.
Yeah.
We're taking it out of this category.
Got you, but
And,
I.
and actually, we're talking about the BMPs and LIDs, and I was just looking forward.
All I'm saying is that if we're transferring it to somewhere else, I need to know what language we're transferring and where we're transferring it to.
Well, we
That-
tabled the discussion because we're gonna add the
Okay,
BMP and LID, some examples, as you suggested, as some guidance to council. Just looking to where we're doing that.
But I think this is a little bit more than a BMP or LID that someone could select. I think this is kind of the overarching feature that, at least from my perspective, we're trying to get everyone to participate in. So to me, this should be called out separately and kind of elevated above other potential BMPs that someone may choose from a menu of all sorts of BMP options.
Do you want it in miscellaneous items then?
Yeah, it could be, yeah, why don't we maybe put it to miscellaneous and,
Well, when we get to
Right there.
miscellaneous, then bring it back, Nicole,
yeah,
because,
Okay.
yeah, that's a
Which
good
we'll
idea.
probably
Okay.
get to next time.
right.
So, okay. So we'll discuss that one.
Okay.
Number 3. If the current drainage pumping cannot be eliminated at the present time due to vested permits, then consider how the pumping can be directed to natural retention areas versus the current ditch to outfalls. Ultimately, if the land use density is increased, the pumping must be discontinued.
If we wanted to have something here, I had suggested creating a plan that would provide opportunities to take stormwater currently conveyed through canal systems and redirect at least a portion of the flow into filter marshes and other areas which would facilitate groundwater recharge. I think we've
Yeah, I
we've
much
got
prefer
that
your
elsewhere.
language.
Much better.
Nicole, I would add, I'm okay with your language other than this conveyed through canal system. I would say and pumping, and pump systems, because right now,
Right.
we've got both, actually. It's pumped and then put in a canal.
But what, it talks about the current drainage pumping, this is sort of a vague concept to me.
Well,
You gotta look at Nicole's wording.
Right.
The next-
And there aren't,
But I
there aren't
think-
many people this would apply to, I can imagine.
I think, Nicole, in your language where you say convey, you should say convey including pumping, because there is pumping out there that could be redirected. as
Or
to-
else, if we say conveyed through canal systems and pump systems,
Well,
and
yeah,
redirect.
convey, I think you have something like conveying, and it just say including pumping. As.
Through canal and pump
There's
system.
gravity flow, and then
Right,
there's.
through canal and pump systems, right.
Because there are at least 2 or 3 systems out there.
So you
that are
just say
pump-
through canal and pump systems
And pumping
Yeah.
systems.
and pumping systems?
Pumping systems.
And it does more than just facilitate groundwater recharge, so I think we can just
Right.
say flow into filter marshes or other areas. And
You
just,
might wanna use ditch instead of canal. I'm not sure if we're talking about canals. I think what I see is more, well, I guess either way.
or you
Canals
can
or
say ditch and canal, I mean,
Ditch/canal.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I've got, using Nicole's language,
right.
create a plan that would provide opportunities to take stormwater currently conveyed through canal, ditch, and pumping systems and redirect at least portion of the flow into filter marshes and other areas, period.
That would refer to the water that runs along Bonita Grande too, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, is this too generic? I mean, because I think the intention is to take any areas where it's unnatural and try to get some of it back into the natural system, not necessarily take stuff that's naturally flowing into a canal and redirect
No,
it.
but that canal shoots it down into the,
Oh, I know.
so if it were redirected to not naturally
Maybe
flow into a canal.
stormwater
but-
currently unnaturally conveyed. Can we just, if we add the word unnaturally
Well, it
conveyed?
naturally sheet flows, but then somebody put the swale in.
Right, it's making it go a heck of a lot faster than it
directs
should have.
Right, so.
So that's why I'm
It's not
saying
even
unnaturally
artificially.
conveyed by pumping through, or conveyed by, through
Artificially,
artificially,
I don't
fine.
know.
I mean, our intention is not to,
Yeah, disrupt a natural
Disrupt
system
natural
and do
stuff,
this,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right, what do you have there, John?
Create a plan that would provide opportunities to take stormwater currently artificially conveyed through canal, ditch, and pump systems and redirect, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I like that. Policy efforts should be coordinated by city staff, South Florida Water Management District, and the DRGR working group. Although, I mean,
Which.
We're gonna have to talk about that
mention
before- yeah.
Which we'll get to, right?
get rid of that. So, and be targeted for implementation in 3 months. And really, all you're doing is creating a plan, so it shouldn't cost anything. Okay,
Staff time.
I like that. Everybody clear on that one? Yes? Ready for vote?
Yes.
All those in favor? Yes? All right. Unanimous. Number 4, let's see if we can get through all these today. Eliminate/reduce private potable wells by extending the central water system as density increases. Fred?
Well, the one problem you have, one of the biggest private potable wells, I believe, is probably out Citrus Park. And they make, I mean, the reality is they make a nice income every month from all the people out there that rent their, you know, their land. For most part, their land is rented, not sold. I don't know, short of somebody offering them so much money they couldn't refuse it, I don't see any way you'd ever get them out of doing that unless DEP or somebody else or Department of Health comes in and determines that the way they're doing things is unsanitary and a risk to the health and welfare and safety of the people that are their customers.
And to that point, number 5, maybe we want to combine these together, because number 5 is eliminate reduced septic tanks by extending the central sewer system. So, I mean, do we want to discuss these together? That would be my suggestion.
And I think
Okay.
both the issue, you know, and I think I might have put as density increase because that was before it became such a voodoo thing to say, but the right now, legally or economically, I don't see how BSU or anybody else is going to extend lines to serve 1 unit per 10 acres. It's just not going to happen, and I don't think you can mandate they do that either and lose money, because then they'd have to raise rates for everybody else to do that, which I guess that would be the consequence. So, but certainly if there's land use changes, you could require it. And I think you're right, Fred, the Citrus Park scenario is that they're a franchise utility, they make money, and they have the right to make money on their system, and if somebody like BSU was to take that over, and then somebody has to pay for that, and if it means outside help because BSU is going to offer that and they want this, well, then who makes up the difference is probably some outside source, like you
Right.
say.
And then on
But-
top of that, if you have the sanitary sewer, you have to pay a connection fee, which will add another
Yeah.
$25, $35 a month for 25
Yeah, and I've
years.
I think I had one in here later that there could be, if there was some way to negotiate the sewer, because it's easy enough to put a pump station there, pump it right over to the plant,
yeah.
and then you don't have the perk ponds next to the well field. But that should be the one that maybe is focused. But anyway, this whole issue of extending water and sewer to the current private wells, which are, and Citrus Park is not a private well, it's a franchised public utility. I just don't see how this has got where we go anywhere with it, because I don't think it can be required legally or economically.
No, I would agree with you.
May I ask a question in regarding private homes that have septic and their own well, which is for most of the residents out there? If the BSU brings something within reasonable reach of your home, can we then encourage people to hook up?
We actually already adopted a mandatory sewer connection requirement. If you're within a certain amount of feet, I'd have to look at the
Okay,
ordinance. I can
so
pull
we
it
already
in.
have that covered?
Right.
Okay,
The distance, so yeah, if it's near you, yeah.
Right.
right.
Right, the problem is it's in the DRGR, it's not near anybody, and it doesn't
It isn't at this
financially make
point,
sense
but
to
it
do
may
that
at some point.
without
come.
Right.
clustering the
So
development.
at the risk of touching a third rail, if we looked at Scott's language, where
And
we
I
combine,
think I would add just a little bit.
but you've combined the septic from number 5 and the wells from number 4, which I think is a good start.
So would you read your language?
Yeah, and I recognize that we can't force people to do this, which is why we'd have to.
Can we talk about incentivizing?
Yeah, let me read it first, and I'm just going to add, seek to eliminate/reduce private potable wells and septic tanks by planning future development in such a manner as to allow efficiency when extending the central water and sewer systems as density increases, which will likely call for clustered development.
I think you should take that likely call for cluster.
And that's fine.
I don't see we can't even define what that might be.
I'm fine. We can even eliminate the as density increases. I mean, I think that's
Or say if.
factually what's going to happen,
Or
but
if, put the word if.
I,
in front
If,
of-
we could do that,
if density increases, I mean, I don't care either
Do
way.
we have any data over time as far as quality of water staying the same or getting better or getting worse that comes out of Citrus Park?
Oh, I have no idea.
Do we have any monitors?
You talking
that's
about the drinking water?
drinking, well, what groundwater I'm thinking right now?
I think the city monitors that. Audrey, yeah?
They have a-
Pretty,
They have an annual report they do, you can pull off their website. I think.
I'm less concerned about their drinking water than their package plant, but their
Yeah.
package plant's 30 years old and they have a life expectancy
Well, that's
of
why
what,
you're
10 or
just giving
15
them an
does?
incentive for improving their system or replacing it.
Yeah,
So, right now I've got seek to eliminate / reduce private potable wells and septic tanks by planning future development in such a manner as to allow efficiencies extending the central water.
When
and-
extending,
I'm sorry, what?
when extending. To allow efficiency when extending the central water and
When
sewer system.
extending,
Yeah.
okay,
Or at such time as,
gotcha.
The other thing you could do on these septic tanks is the city has it within their power, if they want to do it, to work with Department of Health and adopt increased, more stringent regulations on septic tanks and say, when those go in effect, you've got to upgrade your facility within 5 years or 7 years. It's, you don't make it instantaneous, but that could also be done to take care of a lot of those tanks out there, and that really is being done to protect public health, welfare, and safety and all that stuff. But it has been done in other places. We could do it here.
and just to bring it up, in number 7, we talk about specifically about Citrus Park's wastewater treatment plant. So,
We have a consensus on 4 and 5 combined?
I think so.
I think so. So we want to read that one more time so we can vote on it. Seek to eliminate / reduce private potable wells and septic tanks by planning future development in such a manner as to allow efficiency when extending the central water and sewer systems if density increases.
Period.
Period.
Well, that makes it sound as if we're only going to seek to eliminate and reduce if density increases.
I agree.
Right.
Let's strike if density increases.
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
All right, project coordinated by city staff and then targeted for completion. We want to say 3
5.
years, 5 years?
5 years, probably. I think 3 is pretty. You say 3? Okay.
Would you read the first sentence
I mean,
again?
why don't we just say 3 to 5 years then?
3 to 5.
I mean, 3 to 5 years.
What was the first sentence?
Seek to eliminate / reduce private potable wells and septic tanks by planning future development in such a manner as to allow efficiency when extending the central water and sewer systems, period.
Thank you.
Project should be coordinated by city staff, targeted for completion in approximately 3 to 5 years. I have no idea as to the cost. I mean, because it's really going to depend on how they do it. I mean,
Yeah.
the plan should be just time, but
Yeah.
what comes of it is up to them. Okay. All those in favor of that one? Unanimous. Beauty.
We can jump to 6.
Yep. Number 6, consider central irrigation supply by BSU from non-potable sources in order to manage groundwater usage for irrigation and better monitoring of delivery systems.
Well, if there is ever any developments, that automatically almost happens, and it would be difficult to get a bunch of independent property owners out there that have 5 acres here and 10 there and all that to put in their own common system, I would think. Although if they did, it would save them a little money because they'd only have to drill one well for the irrigation, so.
I think one of the, low-impact development, one of the really good ones is stormwater harvesting, which means, you're
Right.
using your lakes for irrigation and so on, so. So I don't know if this could be substituted for that type of thing.
Right.
Well, do we,
The thought was, is there a need for a central irrigation system out there from a regional, area-wide perspective? And I don't see it as reclaimed water either, because I think that's probably not appropriate out there. But the question really, I think when,
It's not available.
well, it's not available, but it's maybe not the best thing to put out there anyway.
Yeah, because it's going to have some.
Yeah.
Is consider the right word? Do we want to?
Pardon? Is it-
Consider the right word?
Well, I changed it to encourage, but
If we're talking about individual developments, maybe this can be just deleted. I mean, it's, I think a BMP is going to be one of them is stormwater harvesting.
right.
Just leave it at that when we get
Yeah,
back to those.
I'm okay with that too.
Okay.
That's no heartburn.
Good.
I'm okay striking it as, Fred, strike it? Okay, yeah. All right, we got 3 minutes to discuss number 7. Study how the Citrus Park wastewater treatment plant can be discontinued and served by BSU. This will take a cooperative approach and a fair financial resolution that may involve multiple local, state, and federal governmental entities. Possible that this could be just the conversion of the Citrus Park. I didn't write it, I'm just reading it. Citrus Park.
I think I put that wording down there in mine to a master pump station. That's what I was talking about. Master lift station, I'm sorry.
But the reality is, it's got to be the operators of the plant to decide they're going to do it. And then actually, I guess if they sell or give their utility plant to BSU, then once that happens, automatically BSU says we're going to disassemble it and deactivate it and reconnect you to our system and put the lift station, like Dennis says, in there. There's one other thing happens. They'll go in and literally, more than likely, replace every sewer main, manhole, and all that, because as old as it is and when it was built, it probably wouldn't meet their standards.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be BSU's job to the extent it comes. So, I mean,
There's going to be a nice connection fee everybody's going to pay.
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know if we want to just encourage a study of it or provide some sort of plan to determine how we can get rid of that package plant.
My intuition is BSU's probably already got all the stuff figured out.
I think the issue is that it probably, there needs to be another party in there somehow helping to make it happen, whether it's the city or DEP, because otherwise it's purely an economic issue, and I don't think they're going to be able to resolve the economics by themselves. So either someone has to help the economics or has to help facilitate the process, whether it's the city or somebody else.
Right, and that connection fee is an issue for most of those folks who are probably on a
Yeah,
fixed
you got a
income. So I mean, I
connection fee,
think,
you
if-
got-
right.
You don't want, the BSU utility customers don't want to be burdened by it, and vice versa. Nobody wants their
Right.
fees increased due to this. So how does that happen? I'm not sure, but it's probably takes some other parties to participate.
Give them a 60-inch TV every time they get ready.
All right, do we want to consider this? Strike it? Do we want to? What's everybody
Do
thinking?
something with it.
I think we
Cool.
need something mentioned in here. I mean, that Citrus Park and their plant really is a big issue. And I know that there's not a whole lot that we can necessarily do about it as a task force, but I think that kind of identifying that as something that needs to be planned for in the future is something that we should do. I like your language, Scott, of providing that long-term 5-year plus plan to determine how to move forward.
Okay.
I agree.
I guess my thought is the city probably needs to be involved in it or at least help the parties get together or whatever, so that it's not just, otherwise it's a pure economics and it's probably not going to work.
But at least by us mentioning it, they have it in the forefront of their mind,
Right.
and
All right.
maybe somebody can be tasked
We
that.
okay if we just, instead of use the word provide, to create a long-term plan? So it would be create a long-term 5+ year plan to determine how the Citrus Park wastewater treatment plant can be discontinued. This will take a cooperative approach and a fair financial resolution that may involve multiple local,
Should-
state, and federal government entities.
Shouldn't it be more that we create a plan that in the long term, not a long-term plan, we want to have a
An
quick
An
plan
executable.
that takes a long, that takes up to 5 years, to, targeting it to be done in 5 years. I'm just,
Well, I think it should be done in 5 years, but it might be a plan that's not implemented for, maybe it's implemented over a course of 10 years.
oh, okay.
I mean, I don't want to,
Okay.
I think it would be unrealistic and unfair to create a plan that in 5 years, that package plant's
Okay.
closed, period.
Yeah.
And then, so I mean, I think if you create the plan, and it's a long-term plan to gently and over time
Okay.
phase that out.
Coordinated by city staff?
Sorry, yeah, I would say policy should be coordinated by city staff, BSU, and Citrus Park.
And BSU.
Right, city, BSU, and Citrus Park is what I said. And be targeted for completion in 5 years. At no cost. I mean, it's the plan. The plan might have its own cost, but the plan itself shouldn't cost anything. And it's probably going to be a master lift station. I mean, I tend to agree with, but I don't want to tell BSU how to do their job. So,
Again.
Okay, so everybody
somebody
okay
has
with
to
that
pay for
language?
stuff.
oh, I know,
I guess.
but that's going to be part of the plan. So,
We're all okay with that language? it
okay,
sounds like?
yeah. So,
Good with it.
do we want to read it again?
Please.
Okay. Do you want it, John, or you want me to take it?
I've got create a long-term, and that's 5-year plus plan to determine how Citrus Park wastewater treatment plant can be discontinued. This will take a cooperative approach and a fair financial resolution that may involve multiple state, local, and federal government entities. This policy should be coordinated by city staff, BSU, and Citrus Park, and be targeted for completion in approximately 5 years.
Perfect. All those in favor of that one?
It's like
All right.
motherhood.
Excellent. All right, we'll take up the miscellaneous and the additions. Please, if you have any additions, don't wait till Friday. I know Fred's got some in there, Dave's got some in there. I'm going to submit mine as soon as I can. They were,
Yeah, if I can, just a reminder, for your next agenda, what I've got is the remaining language that we haven't gotten to, and there are 17 of those. I also have, we've got new language that was submitted by Fred, we've got new language that was submitted by Dave, we've got new language that was submitted by Nicole. Scott tells me he's gonna go back and take a look at what language he submitted that I missed somehow. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there, plus the changes that we made today that you'll need to verify. We've got that meeting on the 10th, and then we've only got 1 week turnaround to the meeting on the 17th. So it may be worthwhile, if you can, to take a look at this stuff this week.
Right.
So if you have any input changes,
Right.
to get them to me by the time the packet goes out next week, because obviously, as you've seen, if you get it to me after the packet goes out, it's really difficult for the rest of the group and the public to kind of bring themselves up to speed
right,
on
even,
it.
and we had a Friday cutoff, I think Friday at noon cutoff for stuff in the package. I'm sorry, stuff that we'd add as
I
member,
mean, I
as member
forwarded
items.
it,
But,
yeah, right.
right, but for purposes of the next meeting, if you have stuff to add for discussion,
You
please
get
get
it
it
to me
maybe
by the
by,
time, before the packet goes out. And the
maybe
packet-
by Wednesday. Can we get it to you by this Wednesday?
Well, how about if I say this? How about if I say that the packet won't go out until next Tuesday instead of next Monday? Does that work a little bit better? I mean,
No, I still
okay.
want people to get their comments to you to be circulated.
That would be great. I mean,
Right.
the quicker the better.
Right, that's my
But
point.
I kind of
is
want
the
to have a
quicker the better.
cutoff by
Scott,
Monday.
Fred?
Question. On the submittals that I made, every one of those, I've got them under water quantity, but I have in them that generally, many of them will improve water quality and all that.
Yeah.
Now, do I need to take and make another set and
No.
tweak the wording?
No, we can talk about where
I'm-
they best belong.
Yeah, I would think the stuff that we turn in to simplify it for city council, so they're not reading two or
Fred,
three.
Your stuff is a perfect example of what I'm saying, though. I want to make sure that everybody's language gets a fair hearing with the group. And I had a couple of members come to me today and say, I'm not sure what this is, I'm not sure where it came from, it was in my packet, and right before the meeting, I'm looking at stuff saying, this wasn't in your packet, I don't even know what it is. And that's what happens when stuff comes in kind of like in dribs and drabs. And frankly, I was out of the office all last week, but made sure I looked at the emails so I could then forward it on Friday. But it really doesn't give people an opportunity to kind of digest it.
Right.
So, this isn't for my convenience, it's so that your language has the ability to resonate with people.
Yeah, and Fred, I might recommend too that each of your proposals is very wordy. If you see the ones we're proposing are 2 or 3 sentences at the most, you might want to go back and consider.
What I'll do is
Simplifying
go back
these.
and condense them and leave the longer version as an attachment.
That's fine. I mean, but what we'll vote on is hopefully a simplified version of what you're
Yeah,
proposing.
that's fine.
Okay. All right, so let's skip on to member items and reports. I don't think we have anything other than stuff we're going to discuss at the next meeting. So, next meeting. Staff updates, status of the,
We don't need to hold a lot of time. I think you saw the stuff on the Restore Act. We're having a meeting on the 29th, when the local group will be finalizing how you can apply for some of the BP funding and what the criteria for judgment and the matrix for scoring will be, so we'll be involved in that. I wanted to also send you off some information on some of the past correspondence with the Water Management District, pretty self-explanatory, and just a reminder then on the timing. One other thing, this did come up while I was out of the office last week, but pursuant to some of the requests from City Council, arrangements are being finalized, I believe, with Kevin Irwin to be at their November 19th meeting. I'm not sure if that's been finalized or not yet, but at least that's kind of going on out there.
well, we'll have 2 more meetings to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Can
Go.
I make one point on something that John mentioned?
Please, quick.
Okay.
Yep.
On the South Florida water management and the proposing of projects, at least independent research, John may know different, but my understanding is if you don't have your project in some study like the 10-year stormwater master or 10-year stormwater quality, you're very unlikely that it's going to be funded. That's why I've said we need to update those studies to the bigger events and things like that.
Okay.
Just one follow-up, John. Will you have the compilation of the wells that currently exist that could be utilized for the monitoring by the next meeting? You said staff was going to be looking into the existing information out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure, frankly. We've met with Lee County. I've got calls into Phil Flood. Public Works staff met last week with some people who are out there doing some independent stuff and actually on the monitoring side also. So we are trying to pull it together, but I can't promise you.
Okay. And just two more things. Next meeting, which is on November 10th, we're going to go through the miscellaneous items that have been submitted since July before we get into the additional items from everybody else. And then we'll go through everybody's additional items. Does that sound good? Okay. And then November 17th, hopefully we'll wrap that up. And to the extent there's going to be any minority report, I mean, I really don't foresee much of one yet, which is good. But to the extent there is that, we're going to have to discuss that at the November 17th meeting as to who's going to take that and how it's.
Can you describe what you see the final meeting be? Are you going to make a presentation and we're all going to be sitting with you?
Final, you mean the December 3rd presentation?
Yeah, right. Are we going to vote on your presentation before you present it, or?
I don't think so. I mean, we're voting on each of the items that are being submitted.
Okay, and okay. So you'll be presenting things that we've already voted on?
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Right. I mean, I might have to do a little dog and pony introduction, but other than that,
It's going to be different than our midterm update then. Seems to me we had to spend half a day talking about the green sheet and a couple of words in there people disagreeing about.
right. I would hope so.
All right.
And the green sheet was, yeah, I mean, I think that was just a misunderstanding of procedure, so,
Thank you.
okay. Public comment? Anyone? Public comment? That's okay, you got 2 minutes. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. You have as much time as you need.
For the record, a few things I forgot to say when I spoke earlier and that were brought up was, I am opposed to, and I do not feel that the city should spend any money to acquire or purchase any privately owned plan. If you all remember, Bobby Brooks was here from Crew, Brenda Brooks, from Crew, And she stated very emphatically, "We will take any water you want to give us." And there's a property available. And the other thing, a few things that were brought up, see if I can get it done real quickly. Talking about Bonita Springs Utilities extending any wastewater. I don't know the exact footage either, as Audrey said. There is a 50 or 75 feet. For example, I can tell you the Lakes of Sans Souci, which is bounded on the east by Kent Road and I-75, they get BSU water, but it's not feasible for BSU to extend the wastewater there, because you see, if they do that, then all the members of this member-owned not-for-profit would have to pay to benefit them. Now, there are about 2 houses that are on wastewater only because when they put the station in for YMCA, they were within the footage. So they are hooked up to wastewater. They're the only ones. As far as package plants, I believe BSU recently negotiated and took over Spring Creek and Fountain Lakes. Now, as far as wastewater, irrigation water, you've heard a lot of controversy over the years over certain developments wondering, why can't we get this cheap water for irrigation? Why does Resource Conservation Services only deal with Bonita Bay? Well, you see, when Bonita Bay was developed, they put in the infrastructure. So it was there. Now, I know over the years, I know very well, there are some of these developments. Why can't we get it? Fine, put in the infrastructure. They don't want to. There again, you cannot put in infrastructure to benefit a development, and these are along Bonita Beach Road to the east, because then it would raise the rates for everyone. And I believe I've said it all. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Kathy. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none? Motion to adjourn? Anyone? Motion? Second? All in favor?
Aye.